Hey! Hey, wow! Holy crap, is that the first episode
Did you just swear after telling us
Crap?
Crap is not a swear word!
Well,
Remember, not within the first minute, okay?
Not within the first 10 seconds. We're on YouTube.
Oh no, it's been 10 seconds.
Yeah. Oh no, we can
Nope,
swear
don't
now.
do it.
We're in the first, this is the first episode of the Massachat Podcast. Woo! Woo.
Title reveal for me, that's crazy. Wow.
New challenge approaches.
We
Wait,
have,
can you repeat that title?
it's Massachat, AJ.
Nice, okay.
Massachat.
Nice.
To indicate that the chat will be massive.
The chat will
Massive
be
chat.
massive. Absolutely.
Let's hope.
I am joined by a ton of people. There's a lot of people here today. Several of which you have not met. You have met Bailey.
Hi.
It's Bailey. You remember her from the Jackbox.
Yeah, I was there for the first Jackbox stream along with AJ, who will be a returning character.
Yes, AJ is also here. What's up, AJ?
Hello.
And we have three new people that you guys have no clue who they are. I don't know. Look, it's Evan.
Hey,
Whoa.
it's me. It's Evan. It's the guy who didn't know the podcast name.
You don't need to know the podcast name. It's fine.
To be fair, I didn't know. I just waited for you to ask.
Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
you don't
so I
need to-
took the L.
You don't need to know anything,
Everyone else.
really. You don't need to know anything if you're here. It's fine.
Okay. I don't know anything about Massacards either. No.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, you'll learn something. And next up we have Anna. Say hi.
Hello.
Yo. and last but not least we have Jacob.
What's up, homies?
Hey.
Nice.
Yeah, these people are all super cool, and I've brought them all here today because they have all played a crucial part in the history of Massacards and its development through its many different versions.
You need somebody to lose.
You need somebody to
You
lose
need
when
somebody
you're
to
playing.
lose.
Someone else.
That's what I'm here for.
So, in any game, there are winners and losers.
Correct.
I'll explain the dynamics of every game
Ever.
That's the goal of this entire podcast.
I mean, there are games where everyone loses.
There are cooperative.
That's
like
true, that's
Pandemic.
Yes.
Bees. Don't forget about the bees winning.
Oh, the bees win.
Sometimes no one wins.
Oh no, that's a reference.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get
Get
straight
there, we'll
in.
get there.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll talk about the bees later. Remember to talk about the bees. Someone remember that.
New lore just dropped.
Yeah, new lore. So yeah, the topic of today's entire episode, or I don't know if this is an episode. I guess it's an episode, but it'll be like a feature-length film probably. Is we're going to be talking about the earliest points in history of Massacards, but at the time, it was not called Massacards at the earliest point in its life. It was actually called Murder. And the name Murder comes from the Gmod game mode of the same name, Murder, if you didn't catch that.
Which, interestingly, I've heard other people refer to as Gmod Murder Mystery.
There are multiple different versions of Gary's Mod Murder. There's different hidden role type games in Gary's Mod Murder. I mean, not in Gary's Mod Murder. In Gary's Mod, in general. There's Murder, there's Homicide, there's TTT, which is the most popular one, still very active.
And that one did have a lot of influence later on.
Oh, it really did, yeah. That was a huge influence for a lot of the earlier roles, which we will get to. But yeah, that was the original inspiration. In fact, let me drop a date on you guys real quick.
Ooh.
We're going all the way back to June 10th, 2014.
I was placing bets in my mind.
Decade ago.
I don't
Well, not
know if
really,
I
but-
even knew any of y'all when I was 13.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know you, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were not even.
I'm
in
the new
high
kid in comparison, I guess.
Like a decade ago.
A decade ago, the new kid. Yeah,
Abducted to the lunch table one day.
yeah.
You're the newbie. Get
The
used to
newbie.
it.
Yeah, so we were all friends in high school, but this predates our experience together as a group, I'm pretty sure. June 10th, 2014 predates that. On that day, specifically, a very popular YouTube group called the Yogscast, who has been a very huge inspiration for me, specifically, released a video called Gmod Murder, a Killer in Italy. And, yeah, that was really huge for my young developing brain. That was the first episode in a series of videos that they did in Gary's Mod Murder. And that is actually where the base idea of like murder comes from. Like almost all of the game mechanics that are present in that game mode are in the original version of Murder. And we did something a little bit. Oh, AJ just found it on
Oh,
their
I
phone.
had to see if it's like obviously if people hear about it, they're gonna like probably look
Luke's
it on
telling the
YouTube.
truth.
I'm finding some
lying.
there.
It's
I didn't
okay.
realize we were the fact check committee.
AJ will fact check every statement Luke makes from here on out. That's a joke.
There actually is like a playlist on YouTube called Yogscast Gmod Murder. In parentheses Gmod again. I don't know what that means.
So if you wanna get into
Yeah.
14-year-old Luke's mindset,
Yeah, if you want to get into my headspace, feel free to watch that entire series. It's not very long. Honestly, you could
Over
probably...
100 minutes though.
Oh!
Feature-length film.
Feature-length film, so true. No, yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. The Yogscast are very funny. And Gary's Mod Murder, while it is not as popular anymore, it is a very solid game, and I miss it dearly.
which is why we immortalized it
In a sense.
in this whole project.
Yes, we did. Now we are still not even to the origin of like where we started doing things.
This whole charade.
There is another very important date, which is actually June 14th, 2014. So just 3 days later, or 4 days later, I guess, depending on the time the video was released, the time of day. The Yogscast released another video called Gmod TTT 2 Men, 1 Detector. And that was the first episode of their Gary's Mod TTT series, which, again, is another very popular hit and roll game. And it's still very popular to this day on multiple platforms, not just Gary's Mod. And that was also a huge inspiration for the earliest version of Massacards, otherwise known as Murder. There is a... yeah, you know what, we're just going to move past that one. We're going to jump forward 3 years.
Oh, Lord.
So those videos released and those playlists continued, right? And 3 years went by before we first played Murder, before Murder was first created, so to speak.
And I had met these people by that point. For those of you keeping track at home.
Evan timeline.
Trying to
Yeah.
get the
hidden
creator
lore.
lore.
The Evan lore.
I do still have some memories, like the first inception of Murder.
Mm-hmm. Wait, would you mind telling us about that? Because I know you have a very good idea of what happened.
So I had recently, at that time, discovered Gmod Murder on YouTube, and I was a bored teen. I was watching these videos. I was kind of just sitting at home doing my homework, getting inundated with it. And I remember one day we were all just kind of sat around at Luke's house, bored. And Luke was like, "What do we do?" And I was like, "What about Murder?" And Luke's eyes lit up, and he was like, "Okay, yeah." And
Yeah.
he sprung into action.
I-
That's how I recall it.
I didn't need any explanation from Bailey
No.
on like what needed to happen in that moment.
He did not know what it would... He knew already. He did not need to have any guidance on what it would entail, how it would be adopted, what would occur.
Yeah.
It
Just
just
to Walmart
it was
was not required.
instant. A switch was flipped, and he could not be stopped.
I do want to take a quick survey right now, because I don't know who the heck was even there
I
that
was
day.
just about to ask.
Besides Bailey, and I know Anna was there.
Yeah, I remember. I also do remember that. Now that you said it, Bailey, I don't have a very good memory. But I do remember. Like, I don't know if this was the first time you mentioned it or if we had already been talking about it. But I remember that we wanted to play Murder, as in Gmod Murder, together. But we didn't all have like computers that could do that. And so I know we had been already talking about that. But then, yeah, at one point it just kind of evolved from there. So I think I was there for that conversation.
You most certainly were there for the original creation of Murder.
I feel like Jacob was there, if I'm recalling correctly. But
I mean,
don't know.
you and I were essentially inseparable at that
yeah,
time.
I kind of did. I really feel like Jacob, you're coming with me.
I feel like I wasn't there, but I could be wrong.
I think you were introduced to it later on.
I feel like I was a
right?
little later.
That would track. That would make sense, but it also wouldn't surprise me if you were there.
Yeah,
Because
I can't remember.
I can't
to be
remember
honest.
everyone that was there.
Right now, I'm recognizing like conversations about like trying to set up this game so everybody could play it once. So I feel like I was there.
Yeah, because I do remember after we played it the first time, we were all like, "This is liquid like cocaine. We need to do this again."
There may have been some other unnamed characters there that we will not speak of, but like, for the most part, I think we might have pieced it together. Like,
Yeah,
like who
I
was
think
there
so. Yeah.
for the most part.
Just not Evan.
Just
not-
not
Potentially, just not.
potentially.
Yeah, other people were involved.
Mark
they're
your
just not-
Evan timelines.
Other people were involved. They're just not here participating in the podcast right now.
Yes.
I can actually imagine someone creating a really nice looking like Evan.
Evan timeline.
Don't tempt them. These people are crazy.
They're going to do it now.
It'll be in the Discord as soon as I
no.
upload this.
Get in the Discord.
Tag me if you make that in the Discord.
Are you in the Discord?
I am, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I don't know if I've said a single word though yet. I should probably say something, but
That's fine.
I happen to get better about my Discord
I'm
presence
like
in general.
like a ghost.
It,
Just, like,
it doesn't
hovering.
matter.
We'll let them figure out which one of the people in the
Which
Discord
one are
is
you?
yours
Are
and
you
yours
Are you
is
the
yours.
ghost, the most, or Eos?
That's for them to decide.
Another thing to discuss later
We
on.
will
in this
discuss
podcast.
later. Yes.
Yeah.
But now allow me to very briefly describe to you what the heck we actually did that fateful day.
Oh God.
Because our goal
Wait, we
was.
didn't commit actual murder, are you implying?
No.
Oh no! Yeah, there actually is supposed to be another person here, but we killed them. Just kidding.
Wait, who should not
In
be named
Minecraft,
is-
all
In
jokes.
Minecraft.
In case the NSA
Which
is
is a
listening.
place murder has occurred.
True.
Okay,
Oh,
but
that's true, too.
but what did we do?
Yeah, so the goal was to create Gary's Mod Murder with a little bit of TTT thrown in real life. And the way that I went about doing that was I grabbed some printer paper, tore it into a bunch of little pieces, and wrote M for murderer on one, D for detective on another, and B for bystander on the rest of them. And then I went into my closet and I got a bionicle, like, knife blade piece thing, because that's all I had on hand. And I also grabbed a Nerf Jolt, which is one of the smallest Nerf guns that you can get. It only has one shot. Really iconic. I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about.
Quite possibly one of my favorite guns.
It is
It's
wonderful.
nice.
Yes. And basically, we made a hidden roll game right there where we were randomly given a piece of paper. And the detective got the Nerf Jolt. The murderer got the bionicle knife. And we ran around my parents' house, stabbing each other, quote unquote, with a Lego knife and shooting each other with a Nerf pistol. And we played until someone won. That's really all it was.
And rinse and repeat from there.
Yeah, I mean, that day, who knows how many times we played it. Like,
It was
At least
like five.
yeah, at least 5 times. It was that was a huge moment.
And it was
The
really
birth.
just a very bare bones thing, because it was just murder and detective.
Yeah, those are the only two special roles at the time.
A far cry from the behemoth that the game has become.
How many
Indeed.
times did we play with the bionicle knife?
It was
think?
a lot.
Oh,
That
yeah.
thing got
Because
some
I do remember
mileage.
playing with that.
Quite
And
a
the
few.
piece of paper sounds familiar, so now
I
I'm
do remember.
questioning my memories. But
Well, there may have been multiple sessions of paper
Paper.
I was
time.
going to say, the
Okay.
paper occurred for a while after that, because I remember we would meet up and we'd be like, okay, we want to do murder, and he would have to find printer paper. We would have to
Oh, yeah,
scrounge
yeah.
for it. And then we'd be like,
okay,
okay,
that
who has
makes
a
sense
pen?
then, yeah.
So, like, that really was, for those of you making the Evan timeline, like, Evan may not have been there for the first,
May or may
time.
not.
but...
I am curious, I want to ask this quick.
Sure, yeah.
Do we have a record of injuries sustained during murder?
We have a few.
Oh, there's some good stories.
I have some
Definitely-
mental records.
Yeah, I have definitely
Yeah.
caused some problems.
We have 2 instances of property damage, at least,
Oh, yeah.
while
True.
playing murder.
I was one of them.
Yes.
You're the property?
You were the damage.
No, you were the damage.
Needless to say, these games were very wild, and we were
Very fun.
We were
though.
teenagers, yeah.
we were a lot younger
And
at the
random
time.
this was before we had, like, any real rules in place, too, so it would come down to people holding doors shut on each other.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you're so right. People would hold
That's
doors shut.
familiar.
Good
People
times,
would
good
like
times.
Hide at weird
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, people would hide. That was another thing.
Was that also with
This
an
is
era where we were
nostalgic,
playing hide and seek throughout the
No,
house?
the hide and seek was during COVID. That was later on.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
yeah.
like
yeah, in the
pandemic
moment. That was
pits
fun,
of
too.
boredom.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were house sitting for someone, and we were like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
bored.
Mhm.
But didn't we also have a hide and seek era here?
I think it evolved after that. Like, I think that was the inception, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
That's something that I haven't been like able to keep track of because that's a different thing. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like I wouldn't know,
Mhm.
but it's totally possible. I'm sure maybe we have like a picture of
Yeah,
like
I have memories of hiding in that closet. A lot of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I don't know if it was during hide and seek or murder, but I sure did hide in that closet a lot.
But yeah, that was the origin. That was the origin of not only Massacards but murder. 3 rolls, very bare bones.
Very violent and wild.
Unrestrained.
Yeah.
Yes.
Super fun.
Oh, it was addictive.
It was something that like we had to play. It felt like this is the best thing that we can do. You know.
That's all we have.
Our ADHD-ridden brains couldn't get enough of it.
It was
No,
very
we
fun.
made like hangouts that like
Yeah.
come on Saturday.
That
That's
was
what
the
we're
plan.
doing.
We're playing
Yeah.
murder.
Yeah.
And it would
Yeah.
be like, okay, we're going until someone's gonna be like exhausted and doesn't want to move anymore.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, we'd
that's what
play
we're
until
gonna
we
do.
were pretty much couldn't play anymore because we were too tired. It was like 11.
Yeah,
at night.
That was always the deadline. Is like, well, I guess we're exhausted.
Yeah, I guess
now.
we're done. Yeah.
I do remember, like, if somebody injured themselves or, like, hurt themselves in some way, too, that would usually signal an end. Or they would just sit out and watch the round play
Oh
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember I specifically could like almost always keep going from when we ended.
Yeah, Evan, you were.
I could have. Yeah. So
Yeah, you were into it,
It
man.
I
was
was
fun
into it.
when
It was fun.
people had to sit out, too, because you would come to these scenarios where people wouldn't know if they were playing or not, because they would forget. So you'd stab up, like, a random person just sitting at a table.
and they're just.
They're like, bro, I'm not even in this round. Yeah.
But yeah, that was like the earliest of the early era.
Yeah, and then you started printing cards and making game mechanics.
Yeah,
That's when it started getting real good.
it evolved really
Laminating
quickly
things.
from there. I do have a couple more dates that I would like to talk about.
Please.
So September 19th, 2017. Now we are in 2017. We have another video by the Yogscast. It was called "Check Out Them Melons," Gmod TTT. We are referring to the actual food melons.
Quick disclaimer.
Yeah, another Yogscast video, but this video was huge because it did something that irreversibly damaged my brain, which is it added 3 new roles to the existing
Oh, no.
cast. of
Catalyst.
Gary's Mod TTT. Those being originally named the Jester, the Phoenix, and the Survivalist. And a little bit of history, those roles would go on to be named the Fool, the Reborn, and the Vigilante. So they are still in the game. They're still present. They're still with us to this very
They're
day.
still with
Side
us.
note
Tasty
too is
characters.
I do still refer to things by the old names sometimes. Because
Yes.
I forget the new ones.
Yeah.
We'll try to be transparent.
That shows
about
you
that
how
when it occurs,
ingrained in our
but
minds this game is.
Yeah.
The roles we have are the old ones.
It was so much fun though.
Yeah, it's a little difficult even for me sometimes to remember, like, oh yeah, that's not what this is called anymore. I know on stream I've called roles by the old name instead of the new name. Yeah, it's a real thing. We were so obsessed with this.
We had fun.
Yeah, but the very concept of adding 3 new roles to the game actually damaged me, because that started me on the trail of adding characters to our version of murder, which became sort of an unhealthy obsession, but a fun obsession.
I
I
feel
would
like
say.
it like sparked. Like if we had been getting tired of murder at that point, I feel like that was just like a new renaissance or something like a.
Yeah,
That's probably
Get-
true. If
get
we would have
hyped
ended
again.
with what it used to be,
yeah, with just
maybe we would
3
have
roles.
stopped playing eventually.
Yeah, no,
That's a good point.
you're absolutely
Endless replayability with
Yeah,
new characters.
that's the thing about this.
right. Yeah, the more characters that got added, the more replayability
There was
got
also
added.
like the fun. I'm trying to think of the proper word here, but the times where we would just be sitting around discussing random mechanics that would be fun to add, or like a random new role that, like, oh,
Yeah.
what if you could do this? What if somebody did that?
Yeah, and we'll get to a lot of those characters that were born out of ideas like that. These 3 characters were based off of Gary's Mod TTT, or an extension of it. These 3 characters were actually pretty special as well, because the Survivalist, or the Vigilante, whatever you want to call it, got a second Nerf gun. It was the Zombie Strike Double Strike gun, it was called. It had 2 shots in it.
And
Yeah, you go ahead.
the other important thing is the jolt could be hidden on your person. It was stuffed inside of a pocket, or if you didn't have a pocket, wherever you could put it.
Yeah.
Double strike, you could not hide.
The Double
So
Strike was
you were-
too big to conceal.
Yeah, your role was
You were a
known
target,
immediately
yeah,
to
you
everyone.
knew.
Yes, so everyone knew when the Survivalist was in play. Yeah, and we had a little bit of a janky start with the Phoenix and how they worked, because their whole ability was that they could come back to life. Originally, they could just come back to life at any time, but we ended up changing that so that they had to be alone in a room while dead, and then they could come back to life.
So, yeah, somebody would stab you in the basement, for example. You'd fall to the floor, lay there for a bit, they'd leave, and then you'd stand up.
Yeah, that's usually how it ended up. And the Jester, one of the best and funniest roles in the game, led to many shenanigans. Originally, they were sort of like, they kind of functioned like the Usurper, where, the Usurper in current Massacards, I should say, where if someone killed the Jester, they would switch roles, which was a very strange deal, but that's how it was. There was also a version of the Jester that would just end the game if they were killed.
That was really funny.
These mechanics were not very good for the in real life setting, so they were quickly removed and replaced with just, if they died, the person who killed them would also die and therefore lose in a way. And yeah, that's how it ended up functioning for the
Didn't it
majority of it.
evolve to the fact that they had to be shot, too?
That's what I was just about to mention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a crucial thing, actually. So unlike in Massacards today, it was only firearms or Nerf gun type weapons that could trigger the Jester's ability.
Yeah, even thrown murderer knives wouldn't trigger it. It was only firearms.
Which worked better for in real life.
Yeah, it made it so that, like, the Jester just wouldn't always kill the murderer, because that's always what would happen if that wasn't in place. Because
you had to be strategic, because instead of just getting killed at all, you had to be like, okay, I need to get shot.
You have to be suspicious
I need to figure out how to get shot.
Exactly.
Part of the important balancing there, too, is the detective or the survivalist, whoever was holding the gun, would drop it and another innocent person could pick it up to use it.
Yes,
Whereas with the murderer, the knife would drop and no one would pick it up because the game would be ended.
Yeah, at that point,
At this point, in this point.
In this iteration, I should clarify.
Yeah. So one more role that got added at this time.
Wait.
Well, wait, you have something more? What?
Jester best roll.
Jester
That's
best roll. AJ is very good at being suspicious.
If AJ could be a fool main, they would main the fool.
If I could choose, I would choose that every time.
Yeah.
It's too easy to figure out.
I'll probably have our mains, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Think of it.
Yeah. I think we're all good at one particular role when it comes to murder, especially. I think we all have our main. But yeah, there was one more role that got added that was not part of that video, and it got added at the same time as these three roles. And that is the Renegade, as you know them, but at the time, they were known as the Traitor.
I love the Traitor.
Also known as your traitor buddy.
Yes.
Traitor buddy, yeah.
The name Traitor, of course, came from the name of most evil roles from Gary's Mod TTT. But basically, it was just a second killer, a second murderer, someone with another knife, and oh boy.
And could use a gun.
Was that in the original role, though? I don't remember if that was added later.
Oh, the ability for Traitor to use the gun.
Yeah.
I think that did get added later, yeah. Whereas, like, the murderer could never pick up a gun, the Renegade could.
Didn't we do, like, early days? I feel like I remember people, like, putting down the gun and being like, pick it up. Like,
yes.
to test if people were the
yeah,
murderers.
sure.
Like, pick it up.
I think we
Pick up the gun if
pretty
you're not the murderer.
And I believe that is part of the reason why the Traitor/Renegade received that.
Yeah, we
yeah.
did come up with some, like, weird, like,
there
tests
are a lot
to
of
try,
weird
like, spell
hacks.
innocent backwards.
Yeah. Spell innocent backwards didn't even make sense.
I don't remember that one.
Well, no, just it is an example from
Yeah.
Trouble in Terrorist Town.
Oh,
Yeah.
But you'd do that. Like, it's just like a dumb, like, meta version to figure out who the killer is.
Pick up the gun.
Pick it up. Do it.
So,
Go ahead.
so when Traitor was first introduced, was this the era where we were trying to figure out if the murderer and the traitor should know each other?
Yeah.
Or each
Would
other?
you like to tell this story?
Yeah, I have a good story from this. I don't remember if this was the first time we were playing with the traitor, but it was one of the first times, and we were still trying to figure out whether the murderer and the traitor should start off knowing who each other are. And there was like some games, like 3 or 4 games, like in a row, basically.
At least 3.
Yeah, at least 3, where me and Luke kept getting the murderer and the traitor. And we didn't know who each other were, because we decided that's how we were going to play it at the time. And literally every single time, we just went immediately, like, into a room alone, and, like, I don't remember if it was always me stabbing you.
It was always you.
Yeah, I would always try to get him in a room alone and then kill him right away, just to be funny. And literally every single time, it ended up that he was either the murderer or the traitor, or the other guy.
Yep.
And every time I was like, surely not this time. It can't happen again. But it did.
And it
keep
happened
happening.
3 times in a row.
Chronic team killing.
So yeah, we decided that maybe that's not the way it should work.
And almost immediately after that, we changed the rules. And I believe that is the birth of what would become alignments. Because before that point, it was kind of everyone for themselves. Like,
last one standing wins, or if both the murderous roles died,
But at that point, it was decided that the traitor needs to be on a team with the murderer Otherwise, like, they need to know who each other are. Otherwise, like,
Yeah.
this is how it's going to happen every game.
Yeah,
It
it
literally
didn't
just
work
happened
very
3
well.
times in a row.
This is also like the stage where we were doing very on-the-fly experimentation, where if a roll wasn't performing the way we wanted to, we would alter it on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah,
we'd play a
that's
game
true.
with it, and then we'd sit down afterwards and go, okay, what do we want to do next game to fix what just happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, there were a lot of very small bug fixes, quote unquote, that we implemented around this time. Speaking of bug fixes, let's talk about one more role that got added around this time.
I don't know what you're thinking of.
The Undead.
Oh god. Oh, the Undead is just such a.
Oh,
It's just a black
every
sheep.
iteration.
This
Yeah.
was a balancing nightmare coming up
the
here.
black sheep of the role progression. Yeah.
At the time, the Undead was called the Infected. Not that it matters, but this role has probably had the most different versions of itself
So many goddamn reworks.
than any other role in existence. Because basically in every version of not only Murder, but Massacards as well, the Undead/Infected has functioned completely differently from itself.
The main one that I recall is the conga line version.
Yes,
Oh my God.
allow us to go through a few versions of how the Infected worked. The first of which being there is one person who is infected, and they could, like, punch, quote unquote, anyone. They could punch someone, and then that person would become an exact duplicate of the infected with all of the same abilities and everything. And the result was sweeping infected games.
Pretty much every time.
World War Z
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
like,
Pretty much every
craziness.
time.
There were no rules to, like, how the infected could move or what they could say at
So
the
you
time.
could just sprint around the house as fast as possible and get everybody.
Or you
Yeah.
could just claim, like, hey, I've got something I want to show you. Take them in a room, boom, you're infected.
Yeah, you could pretend not to be infected too.
Mm-hmm.
Which got me at one point. I don't know how much later this was, but I had a gun or a knife or something. And then I realized every single person besides me was infected.
And then we
And I think
ran
Jacob
ran you
started
down.
charging at me, and then it was pretty much over.
Yeah, we
Yes.
ran you down.
This is
It was
another-
bad.
Another interesting thing, too, was at this stage, I think, infected could use their weapons.
Yes, so
Ugh.
if
Oh yeah, yeah.
if the murderer was infected by the undead, they could still use their knife
They're
just
throwing
as they
knives,
would.
yeah.
I think I mentioned this earlier on, too. The murderer, since this was a physical game, could throw the knife at people.
And it would still
Yes.
count as a kill.
Exactly.
So it was risk versus reward because you could like get someone, but if you missed,
Not that it
you
mattered.
were pretty much-
Not that it mattered in the, when you were
Not in an
infected.
infected game.
though, yeah.
No. So
That's right.
very shortly after that, the infected was rebalanced.
In
to-
big air quotes.
Yes, rebalanced in a way that undead players who were infected by the prime undead could not talk normally. They had to, like, groan like zombies would. Like, and it didn't really fix anything, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I think they hoped it would, like, prevent teamwork to some degree, but
Yeah.
it mostly just led to the prime infected going, okay, you guys go there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it led to the same event of just whoever, like, the undead would sweep. It would just totally infect everyone within a matter of seconds.
Definition of overpowered.
Yes.
One of the best things during an outbreak, though, would be being the vigilante, where you have the 2 shotguns.
And just going absolutely
Oh, yeah,
Rambo
just
on people.
Yeah.
Mowing people down.
Yeah,
Actual COD zombies moment.
yeah, like bobbing and weaving through the crowd of people
And
trying
it would
to
come down
punch
to,
you.
because we would take a handful of Nerf darts and scatter them across the map, so to speak, around the house.
Yes.
You could
So it would
find
come
more
down to
ammo.
scrounging for ammo and how fast you could reload.
Oh
Yeah. And let's go straight to the third version of the infected, which is the same as the previous version, except secondary infected had to shamble and they couldn't run. They had to shamble like zombies.
Just keep nerfing the
And
infected.
that kind of worked. It worked a lot better than the other versions did, at least. but it did lead to what Jacob was describing, like a bobbing and weaving moment, because if any of them touched you, it was over, you know? And a lot of the times there wasn't enough ammo to go around to deal with, like, multiple...
Yeah, that's all.
Let alone enough weapons, because you could have games where there was not a vigilante present either.
Exactly.
Not
Like, the
enough-
roles were completely randomized at this point.
Not enough floor space to actually.
I think
run
that was
around.
that iteration is when I did the I dived over the banister.
Yeah.
To escape a crowd of zombies.
Oh, no.
And it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I know that this happened later, but let's talk about the conga line
Can I
variant.
talk about the conga line, please?
Yeah,
Yes,
go
please
for
talk
it.
about the
I
conga line.
love the conga
of the
line because I
infected.
have some of my best memories of murder from that version.
Yes, go for it.
The way that one worked is the main infected, would infect someone, and then that person was the only one who could pass the infection on.
Mhm.
So you would have to chain it through people.
Mhm.
I don't recall if this was a rules violation that happened or not, but I distinctly remember this version running.
Okay. Was this was this like a vacation?
Yes, yeah.
Maybe-
That's the
Oh,
tale
the-
that I'm going to
The,
read.
Okay,
the
yeah.
cult conspiracy version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea was like we could make infected individuals more. We could take away some of their nerfs if we nerfed them so hard.
True, that must have been it, because I do remember we could also talk. There
Yeah.
was this scenario, we were on vacation at like a resort place
All
where
of us.
we're mercifully some of the only people there.
Yeah.
Mercifully.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, it was a cabin type situation.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of cabins, and we
But
hung out in the cabins.
This led to one of the only times we played murder outside.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yes.
one of the only
that's
new
true.
map variations that happened to, which led to the infection passed around, as it does. I want to say maybe 7 out of 10 people playing at that time were infected. We had all gathered inside one of the cabins, closed the doors, closed the windows, closed like the blinds and curtains, and huddled around a little table to discuss our tactics. Because everyone outside knew something was going on, they just didn't know what. And we also had to wait because the person who had just been infected and had the power was in the bathroom.
For like 10 minutes, mind you, and we
Yeah.
had to just sit there and wait. We were
Uh-huh.
like, we can't do anything because it was only the most recent person infected who could do anything. And so, yeah, we locked ourselves in a cabin and waited for our leader to use the bathroom.
Interestingly, we didn't actually lock the door. I don't know if that was allowed, because somebody did. One of the people outside opened the door, heard like part of our plan, immediately slammed it and ran outside, like terrified. Eventually, when the person was done using the bathroom, we all swarmed outside en masse, basically body blocking for this person, while the one remaining detective and bystander tried to outrun us and shoot down the horde.
And that bystander was me, and that detective was Evan. I don't know if you remember this as well, Evan.
This is what I was talking about earlier, right? With
Yeah, I think
Jacob.
so.
Yeah, so this is basically when I found out I was the only non-infected
Mm-hmm.
alive, and it was
Yeah, there was me,
It was
but I was a
different.
bystander. I couldn't
You
do
were a
anything.
You had no weapons. You
right.
just got
Okay,
killed
that's right. So it was
immediately.
just us, but I had the only weapon, and
I think Lucas was out there, but I think he fell pretty quick.
I feel like I don't even know if I even killed anyone. It did not go well.
No,
it
it
didn't. It did not matter in the end.
See, I'm not sure if this is false memory on my part, but if I remember right, you got a lucky shot off on the person who could infect.
Oh,
So really,
that
yeah.
sounds familiar. Actually,
So it was over, even if they didn't know it.
Oh.
Because we were hoping the massive sheer numbers would be enough to actually make it so you didn't know who to shoot.
And
so
it,
did I actually win?
and
I
it
think
left
you did.
like a bunch of useless
That's wild.
infected.
That's wild.
There was another one though that definitely ended with you getting just ran
I
down
feel like at one point I got mowed down by an infected.
by a
Just like
crowd.
As-
zombie, and I was all alone.
Add that to the Evan timeline.
Yeah.
I do have another thing that happened on that vacation.
Yeah,
Going
sure.
back to Renegade, there
Oh,
was
yes.
a scenario where Jacob and his brother, one of them had picked up the gun as the renegade.
Oh man, this was
He,
this.
he and Jacob was just the murderer trying to pretend to be a
Oh yeah,
random bystander.
just being normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
The person with the gun, who I thought was the detective, said, "Okay, get up against the wall. I'm going to search your pockets."
And then
Me-
shot you in
yeah,
the back.
Me and one of the
This is
person
so
placed up
sad.
against the wall, face to the wall. Jacob stabbed me in the back and his brother Lucas shot the other person. It
That's
was
so
an
sad.
execution.
Yeah. There are so many brutal moments in this history.
I think that was the game essentially ended because the killer team had a monopoly on all the weapons.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That is
So
what
we
happened.
just went around and just
Which
killed everyone.
eventually made the rule that the survivalist, or the renegade,
Yeah. So,
couldn't have more than one weapon at once.
oh,
right?
it made it so that anyone.
Or anyone,
Yeah.
yeah. Because otherwise, the traitor with the
Yeah.
purple knife grabbed their gun,
It was
have
over.
knife and gun, like nobody.
that's game, yeah.
I did
Like-
forget about monopoly on weapons that would occur.
I think at the time, like, there was only one person that could dual wield, and that was the renegade
Oh,
trader.
maybe you're right. Yeah.
But eventually, that did
Eventually,
get
that
reworked.
became a problem.
Yeah. It did get reworked so that no one could dual wield except for one person, which we'll talk about later.
Anyway, yeah, thank you for indulging my interlude. That was just
No.
another brutal moment
Yeah.
that occurred.
In conclusion, the infected version that we settled on in the end was like a healthy combination of all of the previous ones. It had the good things about the good parts and the not the bad parts about the bad
It is
things.
ironic that you're describing the infected as healthy in any way.
Well, it was a healthy game experience at
Yeah.
least. But yeah, that was like a major update, quote unquote, for the game. Let me take a look at my timeline here for what happened next.
I'm gonna cough, y'all.
Oh, hey, podcast ruined,
Get out of the
unlistenable.
room. Take it away. Guards.
Guards, security.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're talking about the next major update now. The next major
update, the next software patch.
I'm talking about this like it's a game, like a video game,
Video
but
game.
it's like this is really how it happened. We added
Yeah,
rules in
it
bulk.
kind of worked like
I'm
that.
surprised we didn't actually name the updates.
I think I might have named some of the later updates.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true.
But we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a reference in front of us here, and now we know what's going on. First, let's talk about the dynamic duo that is the royalty and the assassin.
The assassin is one of my personal favorites.
Yes. These two have kept their names basically all the way through.
Good for them.
Except at one point, the assassin did get changed to Hitman, but it just wasn't as good, so I changed it back to assassin because it's better.
Yeah.
You can't copyright the word assassin.
No, you cannot.
Hitman,
I mean,
maybe
technically,
I
you
will.
can't copyright any word. I just don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Fair enough.
But the royalty and the assassin were added at the same time, and they were added as foils to each other. So the royalty has a very different ability in classic murder than they do in modern Massacards. Originally, what they were able to do is they were able to say that they were the royalty, and no one else could say that. No one else was allowed to claim royalty.
So one thing you couldn't lie about being, pretty
Yeah.
much.
You could lie about anything else except that.
And because alignments had started forming around this time, like having a guaranteed innocent that could pick up a gun was,
Yeah, it was
very
valuable,
useful.
It would lead to a lot of cases where people would whisper to the detective, like, "Hey, I'm the royalty,"
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
and then be shielded by them for basically the entire game.
And to counter this, there was the assassin, and the assassin, their entire goal was to kill the royalty.
By any means necessary.
Yep, absolutely. And later, the assassin would get an expanded objective of they just wanted to kill an innocent player, or like a high priority innocent player, like the private eye or detective was at the time.
Their main claim to fame, so to speak, was they would get a single-use knife.
Yes, the
Right.
assassin's knife was a one-use knife, and it is a one-use knife in the final version of Massacards as well. So that mechanic has survived all the way through. That's
There
crazy.
are a lot of really funny moments with the
Yeah.
royalty and the assassin.
Yeah.
lot of-
So many instances where I'd like to speak on this because I had the most
you
fun
use
as the assassin.
Yeah, the assassin.
Where,
is
like, I
yours.
would just, like, pretend to be chill and kind of just be inconspicuous, and then as soon as the royalty would approach the detective and, like, say anything, or if anyone claimed the detective, I'd just immediately spring into action and attempt to just stab the royalty by whatever means I could.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple instances where the detective essentially abandoned the royalty and just let me kill them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were moments too where the royalty was purposely sold out to you, given to you as a peace offering.
As a peace offering, so I wouldn't kill anyone else. Yeah.
That's so bad.
Oftentimes the royalty would reveal themselves in a moment of panic when the detective was like, "Oh, you're sus. I'm gonna have to shoot you," and they'd be like, "No, I'm the royalty," and then I just come out from behind them and stab them in the back
with the iconic iconic line of
"You are."
You are. Yeah, Jacob was dangerous for sure.
When the assassin was first introduced, they functioned very similar to a neutral role, even though neutral roles kind of didn't exist yet.
They were technically neutral.
Alignments hadn't been solidified yet.
True.
But now they're a none role. But at the time, they kind of functioned like a neutral role, with the strategy, because I can recall several instances of bartering with the assassin, the murderer or the detective.
Oh, yeah.
They're both trying to barter with the assassin. You should use your thing on them instead of me. And it,
even though they were an iconic duo, the royalty and the assassin, they weren't always in a game together.
That's true, yeah, because...
So you could have an assassin with no target.
Exactly, and that's what made them kind of a free agent in those cases.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When the royalty got to use their role unprovoked by the assassin, it was a true blessing.
Yeah. If you could say innocence. Royalty and no consequences, it was just pure bliss, basically.
Alongside these two, we have the butler.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Our boy, the butler.
The butler, their whole deal originally, and the butler is another one that mechanically has changed a lot over the years. But originally, the butler was... they started with no weapons, but they could pick up any weapon. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how they stayed for a very long time.
There was that one iteration of them, too, where you had the sort of unofficial rule that they wanted to be saved for last.
Yes. Yeah, that was very early on. I remember, I wanted to have a role like that, so I put it on the butler just to see what would happen, where it's a role where the killer murderer needs to save them for last.
I feel like it was just a suggestion at the first iteration too.
It didn't...
It's kind of like an if possible.
Yeah, and it rarely was possible.
It was mostly ignored.
It mostly got ignored, so it ended up not sticking in future versions, but it was there for a little bit of time. But yeah, that mechanic in general just did not work for murder.
Yeah.
To me, it's really hard to remember the butler at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's hard to tell who the butler is until they pick up a knife.
True, yeah.
And even then you're like, oh no.
And then you're confused because the traitor exists, and then you're like, what is going on there?
You always have to be weary, if someone is picking up a knife, it's oh.
Yeah, it's
whoa, hey.
Are you...
What's going on
this
here?
Traitor might, and this, I don't know if dual wield was still in fact, this traitor might just want 2 knives.
I think dual wield was still a thing at this point in the history, but I can't be too sure.
I think it was after Butler that we decided that dual wielding was not really a thing anymore.
It's totally possible, yeah.
But then some of the strategy was, once dual wielding was cut out, I remember being, I think, the traitor, and I would hide my knife somewhere and drop it, but then I'd pick up somebody else's knife and be like, oh, I'm the butler.
Uh-huh.
But then people would be like, oh, well, he's not dual wielding, so he must be the butler. But then I'd be the traitor. So.
Did anyone ever find the knife that you hid somewhere?
Oh, yeah. That happened once.
Yeah.
I know that happened at least once.
It did happen at least
once. I think that strategy didn't work for very long because people eventually realized I was doing it. So.
Yeah, you attempted that play too many times.
Too many times. It did work a couple times, though, I think.
Yes. And another one, we're just going down a list of roles at this point, basically.
Why not, right?
Yeah. The bodyguard, otherwise known as the protector in the final version of Massacards. What? The BG? The BG.
Background.
At the time, the original version of the Protector, or otherwise known as the Bodyguard, they were immune to being stabbed normally.
I think was this the first iteration where like a throw knife could still kill them?
Yeah, that was like the main way. That was
Right.
like that was
I
the.
wasn't sure if we had restricted it just to gunshots at that point.
No, like I think there was a brief time somewhere in the middle where it's like, yes, only gunshots work. So like the murderer would need to kill the detective, get someone else to take the gun and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it ended up ending in a lot of stalemates where nothing could happen.
The bodyguard can't pick up weapons.
Yes, because they technically had a prop with them, which was a pair of sunglasses.
Another interesting thing there too is this is the I think second role now that everyone knows immediately upon starting the
Exactly.
game.
Yes, everyone knows who the
That's
bodyguard
true. This
was.
Yeah, we'd be like
Put on
looking-
those 6 shades.
And you're like, all right, there you go, Jacob's.
Yeah, we'd be like looking at the table to see what props were left behind. To like see like,
Yeah.
oh, nobody's the bodyguard or nobody's this or that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and eventually it did end up just being thrown knives were the deal. Like that's how you.
That's
got
what
it.
it stuck as.
And the
right?
thing
Yeah.
with those knives is they're not accurate. They're really light and they're pretty small.
Yeah.
They could fly off in weird directions.
Yeah, they're made of
Feels really
3D
good if
printed
you get it,
plastic.
With the flick of the wrist.
Yeah.
I think this was before your 3D printer even though.
Yeah, I actually 3D printed those knives at college. And before I even 3D printed those knives at college, we had cardboard knives, which
Yeah.
Even harder to throw.
Yeah,
and
which
then
were
we
even
always
lighter.
broke every
Yeah.
time,
Every time,
and
without
Luke would
fail.
get mad at us.
I worked really hard on them.
You have to make new ones like every time.
Yeah, that shows you how like
Crazy
violent this
we were
game
about
is.
There was some force behind some of the stabs.
Yeah.
Luckily,
It gets
the
intense.
3D printed knives have never broken.
Yet.
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 Can we do a
We
side
haven't
conversation?
played this game. We haven't played Original Murder in so long.
Yeah,
It's
been
been
a
a bit.
It's been a
Yeah.
hot
There
minute.
really aren't many venues for it anymore.
Yeah, not really.
Can we do a side conversation though about
Sure.
how like we would make plans to like meet up and play murder, and then
Mhm.
it's like, well, what do you tell your parents?
Yeah.
You're just hanging out at Luke's house, or do you tell
Yeah.
them like if they ask when you get home, like, do you tell them about this game that you were playing? Where
My
you run
family
around?
knows about murder.
Or when
for
you come
sure.
home
Oh,
like
yeah.
with like injuries, and your family is like, "What happened?" You're like,
I think I usually just
Nothing.
resorted to, we played some games. And I left it non-specific, usually.
Run around the house with a couple of cardboard knives and little
Yeah.
Nerf guns, and
Oh.
we're shooting and trying to stab each other.
My parents knew every detail, and they had to,
Every
'cause-
bloody detail.
yeah, and yet they were still cool with it, which is very
Somehow.
Shout out Luke's parents.
absolutely.
I don't think my parents ever asked where I was.
That's fine. It would have been a lot to explain.
I think I watered it down for my parents, but I did try to tell them like a couple of times, like.
Yeah.
But I watered it down definitely.
I
Yes.
think I just didn't know where to begin with my explanations.
"Yeah."
So in June 2013.
You know the Yog
You know
scabs?
the Yog
That's
scabs.
before the podcast released their videos.
That was 2014.
Yeah, Evan, come on. It's
I was
2014.
referencing your first event.
So the next couple roles on the list were created at the same exact time, and I remember the conversation that Anna and I had when we were creating them.
I probably don't remember this conversation.
We're talking about the cannibal and the shapeshifter.
Yep, I don't remember doing that.
But it was you.
Well, allow me to remind you then.
Alright.
So basically, this was around the time. Here, let me just check my. Yeah. So this was around the time that I started printing the roll cards on actual like actually designing them and printing them on paper
And then laminating them.
and laminating them. Yeah, so they actually like were cards.
Is that
So until that point, we had been using paper, which is weird to think
For
about.
real?
Yes.
That's a long history of paper
That is
usage.
kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
ended
mean,
up saving some of them
I
for repeated uses.
I think there might have been some that were saved, but it was at this point where I started actually making cards that had all of the like actual artwork and like role information on them.
Oh, that reminds me, really quick side note. Remember how hard it was when someone new played to explain this game? Especially without the cards. It was like you had to start with murderer, detective, all innocent, and then like slowly build up to the current, all the roles. It took forever.
There was like so many times where had to start.
We had to build up, otherwise it just wouldn't work.
You couldn't play.
I remember some instances where we would have a new person and we would have just made a bunch of new roles, but we couldn't use them because nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah, because we had to explain, and then we'd get like 2 rounds in with the new roles and then the day was done. So.
Yeah. In the end, we did get a lot of games in with the final set of murder roles.
Oh yeah, and eventually we got them in.
But at the time, yes. Yeah. But yeah, I started printing these cards on paper, and I remember having a conversation with Anna specifically, because like you were there when I was laminating them and like cutting them out of the paper. You were there. Please believe me.
I'll take your word for it.
And it was in that moment that like you, with your brain, came up with both the cannibal and the shapeshifter, which at the time were known as the evolved and the werewolf.
I didn't know that was an Anna creation.
I didn't
Props.
either, bro.
Well, I mean, if it was Anna creation, you kind of created some,
you
some
made
issues
your own
for
monster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would pay the price for this later.
I thought these happened after the our zombie character was created or something. I thought these were like right next.
Well,
to
like
each other.
the original version of the infected was way earlier than the birth of the first 2 hungry rolls.
Right, because we took the infected out for a long time, didn't we?
Yeah, we just stopped.
We were just like,
using
this isn't working, we're done.
Or we do like one game with it and then be like, okay, it's gone.
Yeah.
We had it in the pile, we'd bust it out for special occasions.
Yeah. And when these 2 rolls were added, like, it's not like the hungry alignment existed. And it's not like alignments like had their own piles or anything. Like, we were still completely randomly selecting rolls, which was something else, but it did work. But yeah, and Anna, you actually came up with the mechanic for how the werewolf shapeshifter worked, which was if the werewolf saw any corpse or anyone die, they would like activate, so to speak, and they would just have to go on a killing rampage time.
Immediately.
Yes.
This added an interesting knife that couldn't be picked up by anyone called the werewolf claw.
Yes, this was another prop, the werewolf claw, which was like stuck to the werewolf's body. It couldn't be like picked up by anyone.
Couldn't be thrown.
My favorite thing about the werewolf is just like we'd be having a normal game, and then like someone would turn a corner and just like get a little bit upset, like, ugh, damn it, okay, fine. And then they take out their claw and start...
It was not easy being the werewolf.
It wasn't...
When
when you saw a corpse and you didn't want to, it was the worst.
Yeah,
the funny thing, too, is if like a firefight broke out between anyone, you would see one person drop, one person would get killed. And then somebody in the crowd of bystanders would just
go rogue.
It would just get even worse.
There would some people would like actively try to avoid ever seeing a body by like if like before the gunfight like got too intense, you would see someone in the background just like leave the room. They're like, I don't want to see it.
You don't know,
There's someone just hanging out in like one room and trying not to explore the house at all.
There are interesting moments too where if a werewolf knew there was like a dead body in a room and somebody tried to like make them go there, they would just be like, no.
But there's some people who also like actively like wanted
some
to
people would seek it out.
Yeah.
Because they knew it was an opportune moment.
It was like, okay,
Yeah, you had to like plan your route around the corpses as the werewolf, which is kind of fun. Like an inadvertent mechanic.
There's a lot of strategy around the werewolf, and to this day, the werewolf has proven to be one of the hardest roles to win as.
Yeah.
Just because, if your claw is out, you're just gonna get shot or something.
Furthermore, I think it was part of the rule too that you had to kill whoever you saw.
Well, you needed to in order to win, because at that point you just basically needed to be last person standing.
Yeah, it was just there was never a scenario where the werewolf would activate and then try to like work with anyone because they wanted to be the last.
Until much
You
later,
had to go on a rampage, pretty much. Was the rules.
at this point, the hungry alignment didn't exist, like I said, so, like...
You couldn't negotiate with anyone.
The werewolf could not negotiate with anyone, not even the cannibal, the cannibal otherwise known as the Evolved, who ended up being, like, their ally in the end of all of this, but... yeah, the Evolved was a very different role.
Very unique.
Yeah, and the Evolved was actually inspired by another video. I have another date for you. Another Yogscast video. February 22nd, 2018. In that video, they had they had like a item. It was like an item. It wasn't a role, and basically it made them into what the Evolved was for us. Which I will describe now. The Evolved was someone who, if they saw a corpse, they could walk up to the corpse and put like a little chip on them, like a little thing that says, haha, I just ate this corpse. This corpse is eaten now. And if they did that twice, they would get a rage mode, very similar to the werewolf, except they don't even have a weapon. They would just punch people.
This is where Anna's hubris.
Yeah, I definitely left some bruises on people. Specifically Anna in the ensuing chaos. Not like intentionally. It's just you got to move fast, otherwise you're gonna get shot or stabbed.
There was definitely some adrenaline present.
Yeah.
Too.
Yes.
Many of my rib have been bruised.
Anna really did get like visibly injured by her own creation on multiple occasions.
Sometimes I'd even hurt myself.
Yeah, because you would go crazy.
Yeah.
This also led to some really interesting rules clarifications that we had to discuss, where what happens if the werewolf sees a dead body that's been eaten?
Yeah, well, we treated the body like it wasn't there, because it just got eaten.
But then there could be scenarios where you wouldn't see the chip.
Right, yeah. And that was something that we just couldn't avoid. Yeah. There were a lot of little rule things.
Or
like
the
that.
whole deal with the reborn, where if you're the reborn and the evolved comes in and puts a chip on you, you're like dead.
Yeah,
you
can't be revived after the
That's
evolved
what's
eats
scary.
you.
If you're like, oh great, I'm the reborn, but
I'm fine, and then the evolved saunters in, the chip in hand, and you're
You're
like,
like,
no.
Which could lead to some interesting scenarios where, like, you would hear someone approaching the room, you're dead, and you're like, I've got to move.
I've got to get up, otherwise,
The evolved might eat me. Yeah.
Side conversation. Like, these games got so dynamic that, like, after each game we would have a conversation of like a debriefing of
it'd be like a post-game breakdown. That tells you how complicated this has got when I was talking about like teaching people this game, because there's just so many layers each game. You'd have to like unpack what happened.
It was kind of like half the fun though, because then you got to relive it, but like the excitement of like everybody else being.
And then you'd be like, oh, why did Jacob do that? Oh, because
that's another really interesting thing about the like real life component of it. You weren't in every place at once. You didn't know everything that had occurred.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of scenarios where something crazy would happen, like you'd be down in a room and you'd hear screaming somewhere else, and you don't know what just happened. Maybe you'll walk in and there's one person saying, oh, I'm fine, and you kind of just have to try and figure it out.
And if you're the detective, it's like, well, cock your gun. And
there were a lot of moments where like Evan or I would just hear screaming from the basement and then just look at each other, and then one of us would pull out a gun and cock it and be like, I'll be right back.
We'll be right
if
back.
I don't come back, tell my family I love them.
It also led to several moments where like the mystery would be solved unbeknownst to a group of people.
Yeah.
And there are multiple parts to this story, so I'll tell my part of this story, and then I want other people to chip in. There was, I think it was Bailey that was murdered downstairs by AJ, and I saw Bailey's body, and I told Evan, who I didn't know was the detective at the time, like, that Bailey is dead in the closet over here, and, a couple minutes went by, and I could see, like, Evan's gears turning, and all of a sudden, he just sprints upstairs. He says something like, and I couldn't hear it.
Oh, yeah, this one.
Yeah. I couldn't hear it, but he's gone. Now, who wants to pick up that story?
I don't have the greatest memory of it, but I did want to chime in that at this point you could hide bodies.
Oh, yeah, true.
You just
you would tap the person who's dead on the ground and say, hey, move over there for me.
Yeah, that's how you ended up in the closet.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to.
Yeah, it would make the games last a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly.
And gave the werewolf kind of a mulligan.
Yeah.
And also, like, if a body got found, the timer kind of started for the murderer. But I do remember what happened afterwards when
Evan sprints
when
up the
we were
stairs.
I was hanging out upstairs, and like I wasn't really keeping track of AJ. I was just hanging out with someone else, and like you were just going around just talking to people, being all casual and
Keep
stuff.
track of your local AJ.
Yeah, you're just being casual and just having conversations and stuff, and I was just vibing, and then like you went into a room with someone else, and I walked out of the room, and then Evan came up the stairs and was just like, "It's AJ," and then turned the corner into the room and just lined up the shot and just blasted
Bust
AJ.
the door down, blasted AJ.
Yeah. I have no idea, like, why
Somehow I
how
had
I
kept
was
track
doing
of rolls. I don't know if there was a royalty or something, but somehow with the people who had died, I was like, there is one person left that this has to be AJ. So I didn't even say anything. I just like
Walked
took care of
in
the
and
job.
shot
Yeah.
them.
If I recall, part of it too might have been the fact that I think AJ and I were alone in the basement, and then only AJ came back up.
Oh
Well,
yeah, it might have
I'm
been something
trying
like
to-
that too.
Because I think what happened is AJ hid me in the closet, and several people searched the room I was in without
Right,
checking the
that was-
closet.
I think that was.
And
part of it, too.
then like slightly later, I find you, tell Evan, and then he's.
Oh, and then it was like,
Yeah.
then the gears, right? Because I saw you both. Yep.
Which leads to interesting,
Yeah.
like, fun, quote unquote, for me, where I was sitting in the closet hearing footsteps outside, hoping someone would open the door.
I hope someone can find me
I
and
saw
avenge
you
my
both
death.
go off together down the stairs, and I took like a quick mental note, and then later, with that information, it was like, oh, okay.
I will say that is probably one of the greatest moments. Like, it's a moment that we continuously bring up.
It
Like,
could be framed on a wall.
I just
as a classic.
remember, I just distinctly remember you having a conversation with another player. And then I just, like, it was just a normal conversation, and I was just following
like,
behind
nothing
Evan.
was
from your
going on.
perspective,
Yeah,
AJ had done no wrong.
Done nothing wrong, and Evan just whipped open the door, pulled out his gun, and just iced AJ mid-conversation.
I can't remember who I was talking to, but I remember them
Yeah.
going, like, being shocked or something.
I do love Luke's perspective of Evan running up going, ugh.
Yeah, I was like such in a frantic hurry because I was like, I need to get this done, and I think I like yelled.
Like, I
something.
walk up the stairs and the game is over,
Yeah.
and I have to hear this whole story.
Yeah, it was super funny.
It was really good.
That's funny. I hadn't thought about that for a while.
Yeah, that was one of the moments of all time for sure.
Moments of all time.
Yeah.
Best investigator.
Oh,
Best detective. For
That's
real,
like
for real.
Really good detective work, yeah.
Yeah.
That was.
I mean, you seriously put it all together. It was
Yeah, if you
perfect.
combined me and Evan, you'd have the ultimate private eye, because I was a crack shot, and you just had the mental notes.
I think what we're figuring out is Jacob's just really dangerous, like every role he
He's
plays.
scary. He's very scary.
In more ways than
Okay. Let's get back on the roll
Yeah,
list.
sorry about the intro.
Let's talk about everyone's favorite role. The coroner.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Best character.
No.
Most useful.
Like, unbelievably, coroner has had quite the arc over, like, their existence, because coroner is actually very useful in modern Massacards, right? In Murder, coroner was about the most useless thing besides the innocent bystander. So
You drew this card, and you're basically like, well, I guess I'm not playing this round, pretty much.
what they did, which is so funny. I there's so many memorable moments of coroner
That's funny,
moments. Is they were able to walk up to a corpse and ask, "How did you die?" And the corpse would have to respond with the weapon that killed them, right?
There could be moments, too, where the corpse wouldn't know what weapon was used on them.
Yeah, and they would have to say, "I don't know." And also, if the corpse was eaten, the coroner couldn't perform the autopsy. But it basically led to many funny moments of someone just dying in plain view of everyone, and the coroner walking up to the corpse and
Saying,
asking, "How did you die?"
Because that proved that you were like innocent.
It proved you were the
But
coroner.
it was useless, like in terms of anything else.
I don't think the coroner ever had a play. You know, like
I don't-
I don't think we ever
that's
used the
true.
coroner in a useful.
I don't
way.
remember, like,
The
a
only
useful,
way,
like-
the only useful thing about the coroner was simply proving your innocence via performing an autopsy, and
Exactly.
that's literally
that's
it.
pretty much
I do remember
Yeah.
like being very desperate to use my ability as the coroner, so someone would like be shot in front of me and I'd be like, how did you die? Like what
Yeah,
killed you?
what happened?
Another one of those things where it's like you just can't cheat on that yet.
Yeah.
Or
and
if you
I'd
find
be so
someone
desperate
dead
for
in
it.
a room and you're like, how did you die? And they're like, the knife. Or the murderer's knife. And you're
Yeah.
like, well,
Whoa.
I could have guessed that.
I could have put that one together, but all right. It was interesting though when they would say something that like didn't make sense at first, where it's like if they said traitor's knife and like the butler was in play or something like that. You know.
And then you'd be like, well.
That was probably one of the only like real like moments, you know, with the coroner.
There just wasn't enough props in the game to make the discovery mean anything.
Yeah.
Because it could only be a few things that could have caused
Yeah.
this.
That's
And there were many times where like you would get backstabbed by someone, not seeing like what specifically stabbed you. So it's like it could have been one of three things. So you just have to say bladed weapon.
Yeah,
I do remember other desperate instances of wanting to use the coroner ability where I was being actively chased and like
Oh,
would stop
yeah,
to
yeah.
use the ability because I just wanted to do something that round.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we love coroner though. Coroner's
I
great.
don't.
I love
Okay.
the coroner.
But, you know.
Wow.
It was like
I'm an active coroner hater.
it was
It's
it was
it's
like
funny,
almost worse than being a
Important
bystander.
That's
but,
what I
like,
was thinking.
being a bystander is just such a chill experience, and then when you're the coroner, you're like, oh, I have to like make the most of it somehow.
Somehow.
You do have the experience of the world is gonna happen around me and I'm just gonna roll with the punches.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was funny, though.
It was very funny.
And it was a good idea, I think. It just didn't, like, work out quite as... Like, that sounds really useful, but I feel like it just
In
didn't-
practice,
in
it
practice,
did
it just
nothing.
didn't work. Yeah.
But it wasn't so bad that we thought, man, let's just not use the coroner. We
Yeah.
all wanted the coroner in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
game.
I
Yeah,
agree.
it's one of those things you just like every now and then.
It's like,
you're
Yeah.
oh,
you need
that's
some
so cool.
corner action. That's
Yeah. Up next we have the Witch Doctor.
Ah, yes.
Otherwise known as the Necromancer.
I love this man.
Mechanically, the Necromancer Witch Doctor has not changed at all.
I mean, how could you really change it?
Yeah.
No need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, they could bring anyone back to life at any time. They could just, it was a one-time use, they just go up, come back to life, and then they would come back to life. It was that simple.
I remember some scenarios where it's like, oh, prove that you're the necromancer and stuff. And
Yeah,
you're
you could
Yeah.
looking
Yeah,
for
like
their
weird
body.
bargaining, like
Yeah, yeah.
like pre-death bargaining. We're like, hey, I'm the necromancer. I'll bring you back to life if you die.
Yeah.
Just don't kill me.
Yeah,
That's-
there's a lot of
And you're
Sorry.
like, how can I
No,
trust you then?
Yeah.
You know?
And it was at this point that the neutral role, the
That's
neutral
what I was about to
alignment,
say, too.
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
solidified. It was solidified with the Witch Doctor Necromancer.
I was also going to say, too, that kind of had to be introduced at this point because this was one of the roles that was most bargained over by, like, the
Mhm.
detective and the murderer.
Absolutely.
Everyone would be talking to the Witch Doctor, trying to get them on their team.
Yeah,
That's what was really fun about, for me anyway, being the necromancer is like you could side with whoever was winning pretty much.
Mhm.
Like you could be like, okay, I want to try and side with the murderer this round, or I want to try like you could always switch sides. So yeah, it was
Or
really
you could
fun.
just incite chaos. The murderer dies, the game's over. No, it's not.
I loved that too. Every once in a while,
Yeah.
if you're being chaotic, just resurrect the murderer. Yeah.
I think I
It was
remember
epic.
someone else fill in my memory on this, but I feel like I remember it was like a bargaining situation going on in the basement at some point where like somebody I think was the Phoenix and was like, well, here's how we can prove that this person
Oh, yeah,
is the
Oh.
necromancer is just kill me. I can doubly prove that I'm the Phoenix and they can like resurrect me.
So
or,
if they
like-
weren't
Oh,
the
yeah.
Necromancer, then the Phoenix could bring themselves back to life anyway.
Yeah,
But if the necromancer was really
there was a lot of
yeah.
like fun, unique ways to prove the role you were.
Mhm.
Because besides the royalty, like we said, there isn't you can't claim anything and be truthful for sure. So
yeah.
there's a lot of fun little
Hacks.
Little
at
hacks
the, at
that
the
you could
expense
figure
of
out.
wasting your ability
Yeah,
to
yeah,
prove
yeah.
who you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
The
no,
meta.
sorry.
The
the
meta.
meta. Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, Reborn was always like putting themselves in incredibly dangerous situations on purpose to prove who they were.
Exactly.
There'd
Yeah.
be a lot of, like, this was a joke that was established very early on and kept recurring. Was just, hey, come alone in this room with me.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times you would just have a pleasant conversation. But
I-
it was the threat of being alone.
Yeah. And that reminded me that the reborn play you could do is make someone kill you, like you were saying, Jacob, and then resurrect, and you'd be like, so and so's the murderer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you just like they just killed me. So
Yeah. That
It put the timer on the murderer.
That
If you started
strategy-
killing and there was a reborn, you had to move quick.
yeah.
that
'Cause they
strategy
could get up
did
and
get
tell on you.
hindered by another role later, which we'll talk
Oh
about.
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
also
yeah,
the very interesting like blitz strategy that would interact with the reborn for murderer, where you just blaze through everyone with your knife, and then you have a pile of bodies. You have to leave to check if one of them gets up,
Mhm.
and they might not right away
Yeah.
because you could decide when you got up as the reborn.
Exactly. As long as there was no one else in the room with you that was
Yeah.
alive, you could get up at any time.
Which led to some interesting scenarios where we're like, okay, is the game over?
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
done?
Is it though?
I don't know.
Eventually, we made a rule, right, where if everyone was dead and you still had your reborn ability, like the game was over.
Yeah. Like if you
Because
didn't revive
If you
yourself
didn't
in
revive
time.
quick enough, it
Yeah.
was over.
Yeah, that ended up being implemented a lot later down the line.
Yeah, or like the murderer would just like stand over you and be like, "Get up, I dare you."
Up next, we have another character who has basically not changed in any way.
I bet it's character 22. I'm just kidding.
The antagonizer.
Oh yeah. This one.
is-
Yeah, this really added to the
is
social
kind of
deduction like shenanigans.
That's true. This added like socially more than anything.
Antagonizer, was basically just a social deduction wrench role. Like
That's so funny.
like you throw this character in,
just to
Yeah.
mess with people.
and they just
yeah.
want the person to their left dead. That's all.
No matter what, doesn't matter who they are.
There could
Yeah.
be scenarios where it was very subtle. There could be scenarios where it was extremely blatant.
It
Yeah.
just added some confusion to the whole thing.
Yeah, it almost never ended up being like you never clocked on that you had an antagonizer in the game. Like,
yeah, that's
it-
true. Most of the
Like you almost never figured it out. Like, oh, this person just wants me dead for no reason. Oh,
I mean, didn't we already have so many running jokes of like, oh, this person just wants this person dead or something?
exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
So
you're the antagonizer.
Like,
you don't
who
actually
was
know
going
anything.
to accuse me of being something like.
Like,
And everyone would be like, "Oh, you're just the antagonizer." Haha, funny.
Yeah, there were a lot of jokes of people just being like, well, I want Evan dead, so you never knew if they were just joking or actually
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
goal.
yeah.
Yeah, you just always had to be wary of the person on your right a little bit.
A
Where
little
it
bit,
really
I
got
yeah.
scary.
Unless you were the fool. In that case, you wanted the person to your right to be the
That's the
antagonizer.
perfect scenario.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then you're the dream team.
That same synergy exists in Massacards.
Yeah.
It's still
Excellent.
here.
Another,
Love that.
where the antagonizer got really interesting is when it was subtle.
Yes.
And they would slowly build up
Yeah.
like, false evidence. Or,
And at the end, it would be revealed like, oh, I won as antagonizer. I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're so
Yeah,
hyped to get
I got
to
this random person killed for no
Yeah.
you
reason.
also have scenarios where could antagonizer pick up any weapons? Because I distinctly remember.
I think there was a point. Well, they could pick up guns.
I know what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's what it
Yeah.
was.
You just
would
yeah,
pick
you
the
just
gun,
you
shoot
pick
the
up a
guy.
gun and boom.
just
Yeah.
execute someone.
Then you had remorse, right? So
So you had to drop
it.
the
gun.
So it was like,
Yeah.
because you were technically innocent.
Remorse was a mechanic that we haven't even talked
That's
about
another
yet.
I
interesting
forgot
thing with
about that.
vigilante.
Remorse was a mechanic where if you were an innocent and you shot another innocent, like when people died, they would have to say their alignment basically, and if they said innocent back, you would have to like drop the gun because it's like I have remorse. But there were select roles that didn't have remorse. I remember the butler didn't have remorse.
Vigilante was the first
Survival.
one.
Yeah,
that's
vigilante was the first one to not have remorse. Obviously, murderous roles like murderer and traitor, like they did not have remorse.
With vigilante, with like the double shotgun too. This is a slight interlude.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
There could be games where the vigilante would just decide, I'm not feeling it today, and would just gun down everyone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what the
Yeah.
remorse mechanic really was for, so that the detective actually had to do detective work, and they couldn't just be like, well, I'll just kill everybody.
Yeah, I'll just indiscriminately like go around.
So you actually had to be a detective.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I
you'd have
think-
to drop your gun.
Since vigilante didn't have remorse, I do distinctly remember not trusting Anna at one point, and her on her hands and knees begging for her life.
Oh, yeah.
I had the gun to her forehead, said, "I can't trust you,"
And
pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I really wanted
Brutal.
to live, guys.
Do we-
Were you
have
innocent
PTSD?
too?
Yeah.
Oh my
I was innocent. Bailey didn't care.
That's so sad.
I was on my knees for you,
A
Bailey.
moment of silence.
You were on your knees
Begging for mercy.
I looked in your eyes as I pulled the trigger.
That's
Evil.
horrible.
Well, you could be the traitor,
That's
so
horrible. my god.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, the remorse mechanic is pretty important, but
Yeah.
obviously in the card game, it doesn't really matter.
Well, no,
Yeah.
the remorse mechanic did linger past murder through a couple of versions, but in the final version of Massacards, remorse effectively does not exist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It makes the game a lot better.
Do you hear that, guys? None of you have remorse.
No one has remorse. The last role that was added in this grouping, this previous group, the illusionist, otherwise known as the hypnotist.
Oh, great
Oh,
role.
this was an interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like this one also.
This was
So
a
much confusion.
very fun one.
Yeah, this threw things. This is
This is where it's
confusing. This is where things started. Like the layers were like 10 layers deep. whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, new players coming in at this point in the experience were like, what
This
are you
is
Yeah.
this
talking
is when we
about?
started like being
Yeah.
impossible.
A murderous role, what they did was they could walk up to anyone, look them in the eye, and make like a swirly gesture with their fingers right next to their eyes, and that like hypnotized them. And now like several things occurred because what is it,
I just
Bailey?
have an interesting, since we are coming directly off the topic of remorse and being
Yeah.
remorseless, I remember I got hypnotized once as the survivalist
Yes.
and just spun around and started shooting.
Yes. It did, hypnotizing a remorseless character in general.
Really
Very
strong.
powerful. It made it so you joined the murderous team, in a way. But also, if you died, or not if you died, but if the hypnotist died, you would die instead. So it was like a transfer of life sort of
It was
thing.
interesting too because we never fully established how much control you had over the hypnotized party.
No, we really didn't.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point actually.
So,
But
in that
everyone played the
scenario-
bit.
Yeah. It was
Everyone
like
committed to the bit.
Like in that
Yeah.
scenario I described, I did the calculations in my head. I'm remorseless. I have the biggest gun. The way to make the person who hypnotized me win is to eliminate the rest of the competition,
Exactly.
no matter who they are.
I think like the general thing that got settled on was just treat your role as if it was part of the murderous alignment. Like, how would it go? You know, like how would you act now?
With an eye for like being the guard for the hypnotist.
Yeah, basically like defend the hypnotist too, because if they die, you die instead. So you don't
Yeah,
want.
you don't want them. To
You don't want to die. So, yeah, and the hypnotist didn't have any other weapons at their disposal either. So usually they would try to hypnotize someone who had a weapon.
They were just an evil little schemer.
Exactly.
But the fact that they had to physically make a swirly motion with their hands, like you can be subtle, but there's only so
Yeah.
much subtlety you can add.
Well, like
So you'd have to get someone alone in order to hypnotize them.
like this didn't make any sound. Like the hand gesture did not make any sound at all.
Mhm.
But it was still very visible, like noticeable if people were like looking
Make
at
eye
it.
contact. Yeah.
Yeah. Very fun role though. One of my favorite early ones. I like murderous roles in general, honestly.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah,
I don't
Is
know.
that why it's called murder?
I don't think I played with some of these. I haven't played in Massacards. I don't feel like.
Yeah, there's
I mean, there's so many roles.
so many roles now. Yeah, like getting a specific one is difficult.
And a lot of our testing too, like we never really. It's rare that we've incorporated all the roles in testing.
Yeah, I mean, like playing with random role selection is a whole other beast.
Exactly,
Honestly, yeah. Okay, this is going to be the Evan hour. Hey, Evan, let's talk about the ghosts.
My baby. Yeah.
The three ghosts.
I love my ghosts.
The ghost, the
They're fun.
most, and the eost.
There we go.
Yeah, the
That's
Evan came up with this idea to add 3 ghost characters to the game, and at the time they were all called Ghost.
It was originally one role, and then Luke decided it would work better to split them up, and I think that was a good idea.
Mhm.
But I'll just explain it.
Yeah,
So-
go for it.
So basically, my idea was we were just brainstorming like things for murder, as we do apparently
Mhm.
a lot, and I was just like, what if there was a role that like a little side note too. I really love the magic roles like a lot. Like anything magic is great. Like the reborn, the necromancer or the witch doctor, like all that sort of stuff is just like totally up my alley. So I was like, well, let's do more magic. And I was thinking, what if you had a role that like turns people into different roles?
Yeah.
So the ghost, like possession, that sort of idea. So I was like, what if you have a role that when you die, you possess someone and turn them into any role you want, which, you know, obviously would add a lot of chaos. And then Luke, we worked it out, was like, okay, well, let's have it be the innocent ghost, the neutral ghost, and the murderous ghost.
Yep.
And then, so like the murderous ghost, you could turn people into the murderer or the traitor or whatever. Or the neutral ghost, you could turn into some select neutral roles, and then innocent ghost, you could turn people innocent. So it added a lot of shenanigans, I would say.
Yeah, there were a lot of shenanigans, especially like in the early stages of all three of those roles.
Yeah.
I should say these roles ended up being the ghost, the poltergeist, and the specter.
Not the ghost, most, and Eos.
Yeah, we did call them.
Feel
the
free to
ghost,
refer to them as that.
the ghost, most, and the
Eos.
Eos. Yeah.
The good ghost, the murderous ghost, and the
I guess the neutral ghost, we just said ghost.
yeah.
We did say.
Or no, we said the nost. That's right.
The
Oh,
nost.
The Eos.
Eos
the
is
most.
innocent ghost.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
right.
nost, the Eos.
Yeah, the
the
nost, right.
So then you'd be
Yeah.
like, no, I'm the most. Like, kill me. I'll help you. I'm the most.
There were scenarios too where if you were a ghost, you would either run into a scenario where you would die because
Yep.
you could cause chaos,
Yep.
or actively have someone on your team kill you to release you.
Yep. And then you could you could be a ghost, but lie about what alignment you were.
Yeah, lie about
So you'd
which
be like,
ghost.
oh, I'm the most, and the murderer would be like, oh, sweet, and kill you, and then you'd be the Eost and turn the murderer into, like, another detective.
Yeah,
or something.
and then that would effectively end the game.
Yeah.
But
That's
so
really
this
funny.
like basically doubled the weapons that we had
It
available.
did.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
so what this did is it doubled the amount of props on the table because we needed a spare one in case
Yes,
anyone,
for
like,
ghosts,
got
I
shenanigans.
possessed.
do
Yeah.
remember there was a dilemma around if the ghost should like carry the spare weapons or make people go back to the table for them.
Yeah.
We ended up making people go back.
Eventually, we
Yeah.
settled on you have to secretly grab another weapon.
Yeah, you had to
instead.
go back, yeah.
Yep.
Or
Or there's also roles, like, you could just turn people innocent. Like, if you didn't
Mhm.
want to risk grabbing a weapon, you could be like, oh.
You're a bystander.
This is
Yeah.
This is a really funny scenario that occurred later down the line during Minecraft Murder, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Oh,
eventually.
yeah, in the COVID
Minecraft
era.
murder.
Where
Yeah.
I was the neutral ghost. I don't remember the exact roles that you can turn people into these
Oh,
days.
right, yeah.
But there was an assassin playing no royalty. I turned Luke, who was the detective, I believe,
Yeah.
into the royalty
Publicly.
publicly.
Public. Oh, yeah.
And then the assassin just eliminated
ruined
you.
Luke,
Absolutely
basically.
ruined my entire day.
That's so funny.
I think my favorite part about the ghost, personally, is the chaos that would ensue when the ghost would arrive. Because I don't remember if this is an unofficial rule or not, but you kind of had to make ghost noises when you were the
Yeah.
ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you couldn't say what you were doing
Yeah,
right up until you poked someone and made them into something else.
yeah.
Yeah.
You had to make, like, if you died as any of the ghost characters, you had to, like,
Like, instantly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, and then...
And that way you had no idea what that ghost was going to do when it came up to you, so
So you
everyone
might wanna
kind of
run.
ran away.
Yeah,
Everyone
you might
kind of
wanna
ran
run.
away.
you
like-
can outrun a ghost, Scooby-Doo
And
style.
also, since they're already dead, you couldn't kill them.
Yeah, so it was just kind of, they were
Exactly.
gonna get someone,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd hope that it's not you,
Eventually
unless you were
someone
like,
in a corner.
unless you were a coroner, then you're like, yeah, please.
Yeah, please,
But
give
one
me
of the-
something else to do.
One of the things that the Eost could do was change people into coroner as
Which
well,
is
which
just like
is
a troll.
a
pretty
very
much.
funny joke.
You're the coroner
I
now.
feel like I
Gee,
remember
thanks.
a couple of, or at least one scenario where it was like someone was just asking, like, because the room was empty except for the ghost and like there was one person, and it was like, what would you like to be?
Oh, yeah.
Like, give them the menu.
Yeah,
like-
give them the
Yeah,
menu. That's funny.
What do you want?
Well,
Yeah.
which type of ghost are you?
Just tell me what you want. Then give them not that.
And I will say, this, like, the whole, like, Eost, Nost, and Most meme that
The
occurred,
official terms.
um,
The official.
yeah,
The original terms.
it gave it like morphed into the joke of like, oh well, there should be a hungry ghost, a host, if you will,
Oh,
And-
yeah.
and eventually that idea became the assimilator, like way down the line. Like the assimilator
Yep.
character is effectively the hungry
I
ghost.
think we
Don't
didn't
notice that.
allow that at first, just because we didn't want undead being unnecessarily introduced.
Oh, yeah.
The undead ghost.
Oh my gosh, that'd be awful.
The
Yeah.
Eos.
The
So just after the group of ghosts, I added a magic roll to the game, And it was at this point that I realized how much Evan liked the magic rolls.
This still makes me sad, by the way.
Yeah. Well, no, but I did add this.
No, it makes sense, though.
I did add this one magic roll first called the Shadow.
Oh, the Shadow's so funny.
Shadow was very silly.
Super funny.
An innocent character that, if you were killed by someone, you would follow them around and say, "This person killed me. This person killed me."
Now I remember. I couldn't remember what you're talking about.
Attention, everyone. Luke killed me.
Killed me.
Yeah.
This is
Say
a
what
killer.
they are,
A
or
killer. Yeah, you couldn't say how they did it or why they did it.
You would
but-
just say they killed me. They're responsible.
It could lead to
it's their
interesting
fault.
scenarios too, really dumb ones, where someone would get killed in broad daylight, stand back and be like, "They killed me. Look, they killed
Look,
me."
they did it.
You
Yeah.
do a detective, you're like, do I shoot this person or did they just help me or like what?
Nope. They're a ghost.
Yeah.
They can't do anything other than say that.
And the Shadow's abilities have translated pretty well into modern
Okay,
Massacards
yeah.
as well. But after that,
This is the one I was talking about that makes me sad.
after that, I added the most anti-magic roll ever.
Pretty much anti-Evan, I would say.
Yeah.
'cause-
The Huntsman. Yeah. They had a lot of abilities just to mess with Evan, basically.
Because I loved magic so much, and I introduced, the three ghosts and whatever, and
Yeah.
it made sense to have a foil, especially for possession, because without the huntsman, there was no way to not get possessed, pretty much, except running.
Yeah. The Huntsman was immune to being possessed, could kill ghosts if they had a weapon, and they were immune to like other magic things, like the Jester's ability and things like that.
Yeah.
So they were basically like a super foil character for a lot of characters.
They made it so that the witch doctor, especially, was less of a bargaining chip.
Exactly.
Because they had their objective was to eliminate anyone that uses magic.
Yeah,
the
or
Reborn.
at least one
Yeah.
person, yeah. Mhm.
So that way, the necromancer would kind of keep to themselves a little bit more after the huntsman was introduced, out of fear that if they were like, "Hey, I'm the necromancer, I want to bring you back to life," they just immediately get killed by the huntsman.
The big
Mhm.
caveat being that they didn't start with a weapon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you could admit something and see someone like zero in on you, and you're like,
I'll
"Oh,
be like, I'm
Oh,
gonna
no.
kill you if I can.
Oh no.
It gives me a major identity crisis whenever I get this roll.
Dang, but I like magic.
It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah, really good. And that whole every role that we've talked about so far, I would say was like the original core cast. Like, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, the
Like-
huntsman
That
was
was
kind
pretty
of
much, yeah.
the core
yeah, I
cast.
could see
That was the end of the core cast. Yeah.
Yeah, the core cast, like them. They are like the oldest roles, and they are like some of our favorites because of that.
Along
Plus-
with character
plus
20,
character
22.
22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Character
Yeah.
22.
Yeah.
Which we will not
My
discuss.
favorite
Name
role,
must not be
personally.
named.
Yeah, character 22 was also there.
So
We
if
do
you
have
want
a
like the
long-
true like OG murder Massacards experience, just use the ones we just talked about.
Yeah, just do
Yeah,
exactly
sure.
what we were describing here.
And don't tell
Yeah,
your
with
parents about
or
it.
like do it with your
Don't
do it
tell
with
your-
do it with the cards in the deck. I mean,
Yeah, don't hurt each other.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
cause property damage.
Find
I
a
don't
house.
endorse that.
Maybe do it outside. Don't have to worry about vases and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, then you
It's
lose
easy to
all the
lose
cards.
bullets, though. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to talk about randomats.
As
Because
if the game wasn't complicated
Yeah.
and layered enough.
they were
We
a very
introduced-
they were a very big
it
part.
was like the tasty dessert reward at the end of a new player learning how to play the game. They
Yep,
at,
you
at
work
once
your
they
way
learned
up.
everything, they'd get to try randomats, and it
Yeah.
was like the most fun
Yeah.
ever.
Randomats were a thing that was another mechanic that was borrowed from TTT, like name and all. And basically it was just a way to introduce a random game mechanic at the beginning of the game that changed how it was played. And there were lots of these. I made at least 200 of them in the end. And there were a lot of good ones.
Most of them were pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about like what ones people remember.
Yeah, what do we remember?
I
The
think
cursed statue.
The cursed
Cursed
statue.
statue.
That might be the most iconic,
Yes.
maybe.
It was,
Oh.
because it was the most ridiculous.
Yeah.
Cursed statue, the mechanic there being, before the game started, someone was selected to hide a little statue that looked like the Jester's hat. And what they would do is they would just put it somewhere random. And then from that point, the game would start. And if you ever saw the statue, you would die on the spot.
Instantly, yeah.
But the person who hid the statue was immune to it.
Yep.
Which led to a really funny scenario where Anna was the murderer, and Evan was the statue placer, and he was the last innocent.
Oh, yeah.
And you ran like the wind into the
I ran
spot.
as fast as
You
I
ran
could.
up next to this cursed statue and pointed at it, and then as soon as Anna turned the corner, she just instantly
I
died.
had forgotten it was a cursed statue game, so I'm pretty sure that game no one had died from the cursed statue.
Not
And
yet.
so,
Right,
like,
Right, so that was the
I just-
reveal where it was.
Yeah, so like I didn't know where it was. I kind of like forgot. I'm not good at the murderer, but I had murdered a lot of people, and so I was like,
You were
I
riding
was,
that.
I believe you
wasn't
would have
thinking
won
about it.
if you killed me. I think you would have won.
Yeah,
You didn't have any
and
weapons
you didn't
or
have a
anything.
weapon
Yeah,
or
I didn't have-
anything.
yeah.
And then I turn the corner and like Evan's standing in the room, and I don't see the cursed statue at first either. I see Evan looking so smug. He's looking
Yeah.
so smug, just standing there in the room. I'm so confused. And then like I remember about the cursed statue before I even like see it. Then I remember like there's a cursed statue, and then I like look slightly down, and there it
There
is.
it was.
There it was.
Game ended.
Because I was just like,
Yeah.
That was the most
So-
iconic cursed statue play ever.
I think that was the most iconic randomat in general. Because like people would always request that. Like, we need a cursed statue round. We need a cursed.
Because
Yeah,
it
that's true,
synergized
they do
so
that.
well with other roles too. Like the
did.
werewolf, like if someone walked into our room and saw the statue and then dropped dead, the werewolf would just automatically activate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
At
they
the
might
most
see the
ru-
statue and
in the-
drop dead.
And fun fact, the cursed statue slowly evolved into the role the cursed. What?
What?
Holy
I didn't know that,
crazy.
actually. I'm learning all sorts of stuff from this podcast.
I knew you would.
Yeah. Me specifically.
Well, no, not
No,
just
I'm
you
just
specifically.
kidding.
I'm trying to remember. There, a lot of the randomats basically boiled down to like the scenario options, where it's like,
Yes.
oh, this is like the King's Court, where we are for sure having an assassin and a royalty and a fool.
Oh yeah, that's
and,
true.
like,
a lot of it was just
a
like
protector.
scenarios.
Yeah.
Scenarios.
And then there were just
It's
the
on your
silly
website,
ones.
right?
Yeah, I
Or
do have a
something
few
like that.
scenarios on the website, but I do
Yeah.
need to add to that.
So that was random.
I think there was
Okay.
also. Oh, go ahead.
But can we talk about Rick Astley?
The
Everyone's waiting for it.
The Rick
Yeah.
Astley bomb.
Yeah, Rick Astley
I
was.
I love Rick Astley.
It was a randomat that it replaced the killer with Rick Astley. And
Never gonna give you up.
well, no, it what you would do is you would have "Never Gonna Give You Up" on your phone. And-
Ready. With
yeah,
the
ready.
play button.
And you would walk into a room, and if you played the song, everyone in the room would die simultaneously. That was it.
Which brings me to a story.
Yes.
I had this is relevant. I had kind of an old iPod Touch that I used for a long time
Oh my
that
gosh.
I wore it
Oh my
out,
gosh.
but it started getting really slow, and this was towards the end of me using it. But I was Rick Astley, so I needed to have it on YouTube, like the song.
Mhm.
And it was me and Jacob, and I think he had a gun. And we were literally like wrestling because he was trying to point the gun at me and shoot, and I was trying to get the video to play on my phone, but it wasn't loading. It was like buffering because my iPod Touch was so
And we were
slow.
like
So we were,
stuck
like,
in an arm
just
lock.
waiting for this song to play, and just like this epic battle of strength.
Yeah, you were like
pretty much.
holding my wrist
'Cause
back.
I
and
was
trying
holding
to,
his
like...
wrist as I was holding my phone in my hand, trying to get him to listen to the song.
I forgot who won. Did it finally play or did I shoot you?
I feel like you shot me before it worked.
Oh.
That's when I knew I needed new phones.
That was the catalyst that we're like, you know what? New phone time.
Yeah.
Talk to your parents like I need
yeah,
this
it's
in order
like-
to win.
like-
There was also
the-
Stinger.
I was gonna mention Stinger too.
Oh, yeah,
Stinger,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, replace the murderer with the Stinger, obviously, as the name entails. And basically, their whole thing is they didn't have a knife, but like the whole game basically turned into that like I don't even know. Like it was like based off of another. Like,
It's the game that's based off of is called Stinger.
Stinger? Yeah,
At
you
least around here.
yeah, it would just turn into a game of Stinger where like you'd shake hands and then someone would touch your scratch your wrist during the handshake and that would be like, oh, you're stung. And then you'd have count 30 seconds
And
and
then
then
die.
you just die.
Yeah.
So the
Oh,
detective
yeah,
would have to figure out who's been shaking the
Delayed
hands,
death.
who's the one who's doing it, and then shoot them.
It was really
Yeah.
fun to like be just randos who were just shaking each other's hands for no reason.
Yeah.
Not stinging each other, just being like, hey, it's
Yeah.
good to see you,
Because in
man.
order to make the game make sense, you just had to shake hands.
You
with
just had to
everybody
shake
who
hands,
encountered. Yep.
And fun fact, that role eventually evolved into the alchemist. That's right. That's another one that made their way.
Yeah,
in there.
the most iconic random acts oftentimes became new roles.
Yeah, like the innocent in air quotes random act, which is a lesser known one, but basically it gave an innocent person the assassin's knife, and they had to kill someone, but then not die afterwards. Like, that was it. It was basically like adding a temporary new role to the game, and that became the corrupt in modern Massacres.
You just gotta take someone out and then
You're
survive.
good. Yeah.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this the beginning of super rolls?
I think it was the beginning of one of them specifically. The suspicious. The suspicious super roll basically functions the same as the suspicious randomat did back in the day, because there was a suspicious randomat that combined suspicious individuals into one thing, and that's also why the suspicious's roll art looks like that. It's the witness's eye, but they have the fool's hat. That's the icon. That's the origin of that.
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong too, but I think
Yeah.
there was an Ultimate Evil one.
There was an Ultimate Evil one, but like it didn't translate into modern Massacards.
Oh, okay, I getcha.
So there was an Ultimate Evil randomat. It basically combined all of the like evil rolls into one roll. So you would have like 3 knives on your body and like all of this other junk and mechanics.
Oh, yeah, you'd be one.
And there was a
super
similar
murder.
one for the Innocent too. They were separate randomats, but those never ended up making it into final Massacards. But they were kind of like an inspiration, I would say, for maybe the hero and Massacre as like characters.
I'm trying to remember what the randomat was, because I just remember like which it was Evan and someone else. Someone was hiding underneath a table.
It was me.
Oh yeah.
Because this randomat made it so that it was literally impossible for someone else to
Yes.
win.
I forgot
so
the details.
Here's what it was. It was a randomat that made the butler literally invincible unless they were the last person alive. Right?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, the killer couldn't kill the butler as long as there were
And I
other
was trying to
people
kill
alive.
you, right?
Yeah, and I was just telling you, I was so smug. I was like, it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
You're the traitor.
And I
You
was so
put down-
confused. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? I got you cornered.
Because I, at that point, had been handed the gun. Because I somehow proved that I was innocent or everyone believed me.
Mhm.
I had been handed the gun. Everyone else was upstairs hiding away. So, I was fine.
So there's nothing I could do.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
completely indestructible.
Yeah, there were multiple people alive upstairs that, like...
Someone saw Evan kill someone and was like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
like they did it, and then Bailey was like, "I'm the butler, and I can't be killed, so give me the gun and I'll do it."
Yes.
That's funny.
Just such a hopeless experience for Evan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you thought you had a good thing going for you, if I remember right, too.
Yeah, because like we were the only one down here, I think, and I was just like, yeah, I can just take care of this, but
Nope.
There were also a lot of randomats that reverted things to older versions of themselves.
OG infected.
Oh.
Yeah, there were multiple randomats that changed the infected back into older versions of themselves, which was always stupid.
yeah, just to play a dumb.
There
random
was
thing.
there was one randomat I remember that made the Jester back into the original Jester, where it would swap or it would end the game prematurely, things like that. There's randomats like
I
that.
don't think this is a randomat at all. I think we just did this once. But we did play with double rolls at one point.
Oh, that got made into a randomat.
Oh, that
Yeah,
did.
after
Okay,
we did
I
this,
forgot.
it got made into a randomat. Tell them about it.
Yeah, so it was a normal game, except you got one roll and then you drew another one.
Yes. That's
Yeah, basically, I don't remember. The abilities doubled up, I think.
Abilities doubled up, but like the
The
first
first one
one
was your alignment.
yeah, and like
And your objective.
Do we just
Yeah.
live for confusing and convoluting things?
Maybe.
Like what?
It's just so entertaining when
It is
when you're
fun.
in the know.
layers you get. That's like
Yeah.
When you're
100
in the
layers
know,
deep
it's so
of it.
funny because
It
the debrief is just so fun afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
The
so
debriefing
I was
is all
I was the murderer, but I was stuck with the like
But
someone
I had
else's
the
ability.
assassin's knife, so I could only kill one person because I was the murderer. But
I was the
Yeah,
murderer coroner, guys.
the murderous corner.
the
Yeah,
murderer corner.
random stuff like I forgot about that. That's funny.
Or like I was the butler, but I started off with the murderer knife first, like the traitor knife,
Yeah.
so everyone thought I was really suspicious.
If
you
the
know?
jester started with a weapon, they could just like stab themselves.
Oh yeah, there are
Yeah.
rounds where the jester would like shoot themselves.
Yeah, no,
right
that
away.
was right.
You'd
I
just be
forgot
like,
who made that. Someone had the novel idea to get the detective to hand them a gun, and then they just took the gun and shot themselves with it,
Yeah.
and then won.
It was kind of
So you had
brutal.
to watch out for the jester asking
It
for
was
the
kind
gun.
Yeah.
of brutal. Yeah.
You couldn't just like give your gun away
There are also
nilly-nilly.
scenarios where the gun would drop and somebody would grab it and you'd be like, great, we have someone to protect
And then
us.
they'd shoot
And then,
themselves.
yeah.
Yeah, and then be like, okay.
Well, what the heck?
All right.
There was another random at. We like drew names for something, right? We were like.
That's the
we had a-
lovesick.
yeah, we had a good awkward time many times with the lovers.
Oh,
randomness. We had to
yes.
draw names
Right,
for that.
soulmates. Cause-
Soulmates. Yes,
I
yes.
remember that being like a callback to when Anna like repeatedly killed Luke and stuff because it was like
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Soulmates, like, the idea of it was inspired by, like, literally so many things. But, fun fact, the Soulmates random at is the lovesick role now. Got 'em. But yeah, basically, it just drew two random names, and then those people were death-linked, so if either of them died, the other died as well. Led to some really funny scenarios where it's like,
I think
people...
there was one time where
Yeah.
the love linked were murderer and detective.
It definitely happened.
once.
But then you don't want to kill each. Like you can't kill each other.
Yeah, so you would just end up winning with each other if they...
Yeah, so it's those weird combos. That one was fun too.
Yeah. I'd like to take one moment to talk about roulette, which is one of my personal favorites, where there was a detective, a murderer, and everyone else was the jester.
Oh yeah.
Oh no! I forgot about that.
That was rough.
Yeah, it basically made the detective's
Detective was
job
the
impossible.
worst thing ever.
And to make it even worse, I know there was another very similar one called Russian roulette, where there was a detective, a murderer, and everyone else was the werewolf.
That one was rough.
Some of these
Make
are
one
just-
mistake.
I
One.
dare you.
Everyone else is a ravenous
You
beast
have to
hungry for
figure
blood.
out. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
Random outs are something that we can come back to as well.
We'll have to
There are
like get the.
a lot.
We'll have to bust
Yeah.
the list out. Maybe we can have like a whole like episode.
Jog
of
me
this.
could, yeah.
Like just get the list out and go through them and
Oh,
just be
yeah.
like, oh, I remember this one being funny.
that could be something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
these are
I
bringing
think we
up
hit all the
memories
big
I
ones.
haven't thought about
But we
in a
still
while.
have we still have a few other.
yeah. We're
OG
going
rules.
into like, if this was like the MCU, this is like phase 2 of like
Yeah.
of murder. Yeah.
Did you even call it version 2 and print like new cards at one point?
Yeah. So there was a point, and I think we are here now. We're at the
there
point.
we go.
No, Evan, perfect segue.
Nah, let's go.
Proud of you.
So this is
Appreciate that.
this is what I would call the legacy era, and not for multiple reasons. Like, one, I actually printed all of the murder cards on actual cardstock this time. Like, I got them professionally manufactured.
They looked badass.
Yeah, they looked
They
really
were really
nice.
good.
It was a fun reveal. And at the same time, Margie, who unfortunately cannot join us today, as she just was busy, she came up with a event for us all to play in called Murder Legacy. And
this leads back into the house sitting.
yes, this does lead back into the house sitting. So we did go to a different place and play Murder Legacy. And legacy games are basically just a game that you play multiple rounds of, and like the game like persists across rounds in some way, you know. So Margie ended up making this entire like scenario for us to play through that entire night, and for it, 3 new roles were added and created in collaboration with me. So let's talk about them. We have most notably the Witness. The Witness is finally here.
That was an epic one. I
Possibly
didn't
one
know
of the
that's
most
true.
important
Yeah.
additions.
Yeah, I mean, Witness was a huge addition to the game.
Super important role. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was like before I even like played games like Deception that have like a witness in them, you know, or like things like that. So like, it was cool to like have a role like this, you know, a role that's all about like seeing like different things happening.
Yeah.
Like when but you have no way to prove that you're the witness. Like that was the whole
The other
gimmick.
interesting thing was that part of the gimmick was if you were in the room with the person you knew was the murderer, you had to leave the room.
Yeah, it was like you had to avoid the murderer. That was like one of the original mechanics of the witness, the OG witness. Yeah, you knew who the murderer was, but you just couldn't like do anything about it. You couldn't tell people. You couldn't like. You just had to like make it not obvious and like leave the room.
Find a reason to make it, yeah. And if a keen-eyed detective might notice this.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, exactly, and that's what the role was all about.
Yeah.
And obviously, the witness would go on to be the like most crucial role.
Yeah, arguably the most important role. In the
Yeah,
entire game.
in the final version of Massacards. So pretty cool that they originated from here. And in a very similar vein, two more roles. Right now, they're called the Agent and the Stalker. The Stalker kept their name all the way through. But the Agent was formerly known as the Lookout, and the Lookout was formerly known as the Sentinel. So they've had a lot of different design variations, but they have very similar mechanics where they both get to know who the detective is before the game starts. And because they both have the same ability, it led to, funny scenarios. And, these are roles that we didn't really use very much in the end, those two.
They were always fun when they did show up. It was nice when you were
It
a
was fun,
detective
Mm-hmm.
and the agent would come up to you and be like, "Hey, I know your secret.
I know
I'm
who
here
you
to
are."
help." You know,
Exactly.
you had a
Got
little,
backup,
you had a
yeah.
little, you had a little buddy
Yeah.
who was gonna help you out, but he
Yeah.
didn't have a gun. So
Whereas the
Yeah.
stalker was just annoying.
Yes,
Yeah.
Stalker was beyond annoying.
Like, they could just cause mischief, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And their lack of weapons made up for how busted their ability was. Like knowing who the detective was and being able to just go and tell the killer right away. Pretty powerful.
but they didn't know who the killer was at first, and they could get killed by the killer by accident.
Yeah, and that did end up getting changed because the Stalker was very useless for a long time.
Oh.
Yeah, eventually they were able to know who the killer was, the murderer, I should say. But yeah, those three roles were added all at the exact same time, at that same event where we were house sitting.
That was a good one. That was a good day.
Yeah. I remember AJ being particularly suspicious that day. I don't know. It was just
I
something.
don't recall, one of Jacob's best injuring Anna moments occurring there.
Wait, really?
I don't remember that.
Somebody got, punched really hard or banged their knee on something extremely hard.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I think it was my brother and I.
Oh, that might
Oh,
have been.
really?
I punched Lucas, and then in the attempt, I ran my knee into a coffee table.
Oh, so it was both at once.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And we both were pissed off at each other, but yeah, stuff happens. It was still a fun time.
Yeah, overall that was a really fun event. And obviously all three of those roles, which were meant to be temporary, just for that one event, they stuck. And they remained for the rest of Massacard's lifespan.
Legacy was also interesting because Margie gave us miniature sub-objectives, find out what person A's favorite music is.
Exactly.
For the whole night.
Yeah,
If
and
you- if
that's
you
what
would-
made it Legacy.
If you achieved the most objectives, you would be the overall winner of the
Yeah.
murder.
Precisely.
Which did lead up to Lucas running up to me once and saying, "You like jazz?"
Yeah.
Gotta figure out what your music is. Because, you had to be subtle about it.
Or at least try to be. I think towards the end, subtlety was thrown out the window.
Yeah.
That was
Right?
for the desperation.
I had an objective that I was one away from finishing, and I didn't get to finish it. Does
Oh.
anyone remember what it was?
No.
No.
I was really. It's on the tip
Wasn't
of my
it
tongue, but
block
it was
up? No, it wasn't block
No,
a bullet
that's
with a
what
knife.
That's
Oh,
objective.
That's in your persisting objective.
That
Almost
okay?
murder.
Do we want to talk about that?
There
Or do we
were
not?
some unofficial achievements that we were
Yeah.
attempting to get.
So
Let's talk about achievements. Yeah, that's what we
okay.
called them.
Okay. Okay. So early on, really early on in Murder's development, I was to Luke, what if you have a knife and you get shot at and you block the bullet with the knife? And these knives are really thin, so
They're
this was
small.
pretty much astronomically
Maybe
not
about
gonna happen. Pretty much.
6 inches long, something
Yeah.
like that.
So Luke
Yeah.
was like, if that happens, you win. Like, you blocked the bullet. You successfully did not die.
Yeah.
And I was like, sweet. And I made it my personal objective over years to try and do this. And Jacob got it. I shot at Jacob once, like, years ago. And
Yeah.
he blocked the bullet, and he was like the first one. And it was just like this wild.
It was a
Wild
huge
moment. The
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
essentially ended right
Because we
there.
were all like, Jacob just did
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
after years of doing it.
And there was no question about it either. Like, you think there would be some ambiguity, like
Yeah.
if it actually succeeded, but it succeeded.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the most blatantly. It
Yeah.
came at me. I blocked it. It went in a completely different
Yeah.
direction. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nuts.
Yeah. And then I was really excited because,
You knew it was possible. Now.
yeah, it was possible, but I was like, I gotta do this. So then eventually, finally, there was a game where
I think it was Lucas shot at you.
it was Anna.
Oh, it was Anna.
I don't know if you remember this, but I was the werewolf. I was going on a rampage,
Oh, yeah.
and Anna shot at me, and I think we were the last two, and I blocked the bullet and killed her and won the game because I blocked the bullet, and I was maybe a little bit too hyped about that. So I was a little bit like beyond myself.
You were
at
over
that
the
point.
moon.
I was
you were
like,
ecstatic.
I think-
because this was years in like me trying to do this.
Like, we had an achievements board, like a whiteboard,
Yeah.
that like had a list of achievements on it, and the block a bullet with a knife achievement was on the board almost every time.
And we just put it up there because it'd been like this gag, pretty much like you could do it. And then
Yeah.
Jacob got that achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like years later, I finally did it too. So
It
I was
really
pretty
good.
I
excited.
remember I didn't even try. I was just like, there's no way. I don't have the dexterity for that.
No.
So
I'm trying to remember if there was another fun achievement. Wasn't there like there was an attempt to have like an undetected murderer run.
Oh
Because a
yeah.
lot of times it would end in an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah,
but
like
there was like an
yeah.
objective to be like, don't get noticed as the killer until it was down to like the detective or something. I think that happened like once.
I think it did happen right
They're
away.
really
Like,
sneaky.
I think it happened like the first time I put that on the board, because I don't remember putting that one on the board any other time after that.
Yeah.
Like, I think someone
Yeah.
succeeded. There was an achievement there were some achievements that were just win as this character, like
The coroner.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like win as werewolf, win as evolved. They were both up there.
Was character 22 ever up there? I don't remember.
Like on the achievements board.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
never. I don't think.
I feel like every time the achievements board was out, I think Kill Evan was written on it. Every
Probably
time.
my brother. Yeah.
That is true. Luke would write the like official ones, be like, "Here's the achievements, guys."
Yeah.
And then we would add random ones.
Yeah, and then we'd add
Yes.
random ones.
Stupid
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know for sure there was a kill AJ 3 times.
Oh.
There was one that was die twice in one game. That was one that happened.
Oh, so you had to be resurrected, and then
Yeah.
that's good.
Theoretically, it is possible to die 3 times,
Yeah,
right?
true.
Yeah.
Die,
that is
resurrect,
the max, man.
Yeah.
That is the max.
Die again, and then get resurrected by the witch doctor.
Exactly.
No. Because then you could get ghost possessed. So 4 times is that the limit?
Oh, so
Without randomats, I think 4 times is the technical limit.
yeah. Without randomats, that would be it.
Yeah,
'Cause, if
You have to be the reborn,
And
die,
then-
resurrect the necromancer, and then die again. Necromancer resurrects you, and then you'd have to die again, and someone else get possessed by the neutral ghost.
to
The
be
nose
to be the
if you will.
necromancer.
Oh my
And
God.
then necromance you
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and then you die again.
Man.
That would be wild.
New achievement on the board. Someone put it
4
there.
deaths in one.
All work
What are the
together.
odds of that? Probably
Like
astronomically
basically
low,
0,
yeah.
considering
I
how
can't
chaotic.
imagine that.
Yeah.
I'll make a randomat that's just the scenario that has
That
the
makes it
perfect rule
possible.
selection.
That makes it
That
possible.
this is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a way it could happen.
Yeah.
And that's all the achievements that I remember.
Yeah, achievements were a pretty late game.
Yeah.
And by
They're
late game,
just-
I mean
they
like,
really
They
weren't
were
taking
just like
that seriously.
fun little.
They weren't taking that
Yeah.
seriously.
no,
Except
they
the
were-
bullet thing was taken pretty seriously
By you.
So by me. So
Pretty important.
pretty important to me.
Yeah. Let's talk about the next batch of rolls here. There's 3 more that got added at the same time. Let's talk about the elemental. Do people have any strong feelings on the elemental? Because when I added the elemental, people kind of seemed like, You know, like, well,
Yeah.
I feel like every time I was like, what is the elemental? Like,
Yeah.
I never really understood.
It was
felt
definitely-
I
it
felt
was-
fairly neutral. Though.
Yeah, it was kind of a breaking of like the aesthetic mold that I had built up in my head.
Yeah.
But like the
Oh,
mechanic
yeah.
was good enough that I was like, this is good.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay
it,
with
was,
this.
it was such like a fantasy type little creature. It had a little like leaf symbol and stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, this isn't murdery, but it was
Well,
cute.
Yeah.
For me, it felt like it was a lot for me to remember,
Yeah.
and I never really like remembered exactly when my abilities would trigger.
Yeah.
yeah, it ended up being a very complex role to get in classic Murder.
I actually don't quite remember what it does.
They had to defend the person to their right, and if they failed, they would gain a kill ability so that they could just run around and punch people.
They
right.
become they go on a like werewolf an evolved
Right, yeah.
rampage
Yeah, okay,
if their little buddy died.
Yeah.
No matter who it was.
And that mechanic has translated very well into modern
Yeah,
Massacre.
yeah.
It was
it's
rough
basically unchanged.
when the murderer had an elemental
Mm-hmm.
next to them, and then the murderer would get killed, and then the elemental would just go sicko mode.
Why was it
Yeah.
called elemental again?
Because the idea was like, you are like a plant thing, and you have this person that has like a plant seed, like that's like growing in their stomach or something dumb like that, and you want that seed to grow, so that person needs to live, and if you fail, then it's like, well.
You got a nature spirit following you around who wants you to live for whatever reason. Yeah.
Yeah, a very different interpretation of like a fantasy elemental, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Compared to like D&D and stuff.
Yeah, that was also like kind of like, yes, different species of things can be here, because we had like a werewolf, which ended up being the shapeshifter, and then the elemental, and yeah,
Some vague fantasy elements mixed into like the
like just like
classic Clue-esque murder scenario.
different types of magic in general. Like I wanted to have like different types of magic.
The next one on the list.
Oh, yeah.
Is definitely reverted back to the more classic aesthetic.
Yeah, let's talk about the secretary.
Yeah.
So
I
funny.
love
This one
yeah.
has, I have a story
Yeah,
right after
please.
you explain.
Yeah,
what it,
yeah.
Explain what it does, and then this is my favorite murder story
So-
of all time.
Long before this role was introduced, we outlawed the closing of doors because people would just like hold the door shut so that the game couldn't
Yeah, it started
progress.
getting violent and stuff.
But then I added a role called the secretary, and their entire gimmick was that they were neutral and could close doors, and only them or murderous roles could open the doors again.
To prevent murderers getting stuck outside and the game progressing indefinitely.
Precisely.
This one, yeah.
Yes. This led to many shenanigans. Yeah,
Yeah,
tell this story.
This led to my favorite thing that happened, which is that we accidentally created like a closed door problem within Murder.
Like a
That was-
soft lock.
Like a soft
Yeah.
lock, which was really funny. Because what had happened is that the story involves me, Margie, who we mentioned, and then a third person who was there. I was the secretary, and this was like pretty soon after the role was introduced, so I was just like messing around. I just wanted to close doors, you know? And so like I lured Margie and this third person into a room and shut the door behind us. And again, since like the role was pretty new, the third person who was there was kind of confused about what was happening and assumed that I was evil and was gonna try to like kill them in the room, even though I didn't have a weapon or anything like that. And so that person was the detective and immediately shot me. Another detail that's needed to know for the story is that one thing about the jester is that if the jester manages to get a hold of a weapon and like a gun and kill himself, the fault goes to the person who dropped the weapon last, and so that person still gets the negative effects and dies because of the jester shooting themselves. So anyway, so since this third person shot me, I wasn't evil. They had to drop their gun in the room, and we're still all locked in the room, and now I'm dead, so I can't even open the door. But then the Margie, who was also locked in the room, was the jester, and so since the third person dropped their gun, Margie picked it up immediately, shot herself, which then killed the third person as well. And so now all three people in the room, which one of them was the detective, we were all dead. And then, well, the funniest part is we were all dead, we were all laying there. Dead people can't talk. And the door was still closed, so you still can't open it. And so, slowly, a crowd started forming outside of the door, who at first were all very angry with us, because they were like, you guys are in there, like, you have to open the door. like you can't like this is against the rules. Like you guys can't close the door or like just come out or whatever. And no one could figure out that we were all dead, and so they had to solve the little
That's
closed
so
door
funny.
3 body
Eventually, it
problem.
came to light. Oh no, the secretary did something.
So-
Yeah.
3 people walk in and no one
And
walks
then they all
out.
die and are locked in the room.
I would like to tell my half of this
Yeah,
story.
please,
Yeah.
please.
Because at some point before the door was closed on you three, the murderer was killed. Or they died in some way. And I was the stalker. I had no weapon. And I had to keep pretending to be the stalker, basically. And I didn't know that the murderer was dead yet at the time. So that's me, like, on the other side of the door, like, if one of you guys has to be able to open the door, because, like, I don't want to open the door, because if I opened it, I would out myself as a murderous role.
And
know?
then presumably
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, and I didn't know what was going on, so, like, I went back and forth with the people who were outside a bit, and it clicked with me, like, oh my gosh, the knife is probably in that room. Like, and it wasn't, to be fair. I don't know where it was. It wasn't there. So I had to, like, really quickly open the door and, like, try and find the knife. Can't find it. Someone else runs in, sees the gun, picks up the gun, and shoots me. Which is how the round ended.
The
That's
fact
so
that the door
funny.
was closed went to a very tense atmosphere outside. Where
Yeah, we
everyone
were
was
all
like,
so
I remember that. We were
distrustful.
like,
Everyone
what
was
is
mad,
going
yeah.
on?
Yeah, we were like after
We were
like
so
they're like, oh
confused.
wait, something goofy is happening. We
Yeah.
stopped being mad and we were like really
Yeah, we were
suspicious
like-
of everyone.
It's like
Yeah.
logically you would have thought that like because obviously it's like everyone knew okay secretary closed the door, but the thing is that no one thought that everyone could be dead inside without there being a murderer to have murdered them
Exactly.
inside.
Yeah,
Who
like,
then
there's
could
no
have
way-
opened the door.
And that's why I thought
So-
the knife had to be in there.
Nobody
yeah,
thought there's a
everyone
way
was like
everyone could be
someone
dead.
someone has to be in there who can open the
So
door.
in our minds, it's like there is a threat in there somewhere.
Yeah.
There is something
Yeah.
keeping quiet with a knife who's gonna bust out at any moment.
But
if
no,
we step
it
in,
was
we're
just-
dead.
It was just 3 dead people.
Like, seriously,
Yeah.
5
Trapped in a
minutes
room.
went by of,
Yeah.
like, door negotiations
We were
with
like,
3 dead
what is
people.
going on?
Open the door and like I don't know, we'll like
Someone
know,
do
do
something.
something.
Like,
This
we
is-
gotta
yeah.
keep this game going.
meanwhile there's just 3 corpses on the other side. Just
Like, you can
laughing.
hear them, like, laughing because they're dead.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
they
just
couldn't do
giggling.
it.
They can't do anything.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, the secretary is always fun. It's because I found it funny with the secretary being played in later games when like the secretary would close a door and the detective would just look at them and be like, "Why?" Like, you wouldn't just shoot the secretary because what's the point? All they can do is open and close doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like this weird, like annoying thing that would happen where the secretary would just do something and you'd be like, "Well,
Yeah.
now we have to deal with this bullshit."
Yeah, you go in a room with someone and they would close the door on you, and you'd be like, "Well, this is my life now.
I guess I'm
live
here.
in this room."
I can't get
Yeah, you
out.
could kind of force the game to move along sometimes because you'd be like, you 3 in that room, boom, figure something out.
Figure something
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
I love the
Yeah,
secretary.
that's funny.
I remember there was a time I was the secretary, and I'm like, "Hey Anna, let's go into this room. It'll be really funny." And I just like closed the door with both of us in it, and I'm like, "We're stuck here."
Yeah.
And then you just stabbed me.
And you were not, in fact,
You get got, then
Yeah.
you get stabbed.
I made the wrong choice for who to
Man,
bring into that room.
if double roles existed, that would have been insane. If you were
Oh.
a secretary fool,
Oh
Oh
my
my
god.
god.
double rolls
Lord.
got
A
so
a
complicated.
foolish secretary, oh my gosh, that would be
Foolish
unbelievable.
Foolish secretary.
Hey guys, this is my foolish secretary.
Let's talk about another role that has a lot of shenanigans. The actor.
Oh, actor's fun
Oh,
too.
this messes with
The hard counter to the Phoenix / Reborn, a murderous role that can pretend to be dead at any point, and then just come back to life willy-nilly.
That was another thing.
That-
You couldn't lie about being dead. Like, you couldn't fall on the floor and be
Mhm.
dead.
But as the actor, when
But
you were
as the
pretending
actor-
to be dead, you could get eaten by the
Yeah.
evolved still.
Yeah, which is brutal.
Which led to scenarios where somebody would start walking up to you when you're the actor lying on the floor, and you're like, "Do I get up? Should I get up? They're
Yeah.
gonna eat me, I think."
Yeah,
The
what's
actor
that?
could get up at any time, not just like when they were the only person in the room.
It also led to interesting interactions with werewolf.
Yep.
Yeah, because it technically wasn't a corpse, but by all means it was.
But
So
the
you would
werewolf
think
was
it's a
fully
corpse.
tricked, yeah.
Yeah.
You're a really good actor.
Yeah.
Portraying the
Yeah.
werewolf.
Incredible.
Yeah, so it's such a good actor that you made the werewolf hungry.
Yeah, really. That is
So
what
the
it
best
is.
thing you can do is play dead, I guess.
Yeah,
For
because
the
then you're
werewolf,
safe.
yeah.
True.
One of my favorite strategies was like bringing someone random into a room as the actor and then just collapsing right in front of them.
Because you're a murderer, like you're
Yeah.
on the murderer's team when you're in
Yeah.
Completely indicts them.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't
Or, like,
touch
wait-
them. And they're
yeah,
like,
wait.
yeah, sure you did.
walk into a room and then just lay down on the ground and wait for someone to come in and be like, oh my gosh, someone killed this person, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
So anyone who was downstairs is immediately suspicious.
I don't think this ever came up, but Coroner would have had interesting interactions with that.
Yeah, the
Oh,
coroner,
yeah,
the
I don't
coroner
think that
actually had an ability at that point.
Yeah,
Because the coroner could touch them and be like, what killed you? And then they'd be like, oh, this person isn't dead, actually.
yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah, that was
They
one
did
bonus
an
for
autopsy,
Coroner.
like, they're not dead.
You did an
this person
autopsy
is
on a
still
living
breathing.
This
person.
person has a pulse.
Let's proceed with the autopsy.
Oh, no.
And then the actor would have to get back up and be all
They'd
sad.
be all sheepish
Yeah.
because, like, oh, you caught me.
Yeah, they still don't have any weapons. They're just like a social deduction tool,
Yeah, you try and-
basically.
It made being the detective
Allies.
tough.
Yeah.
Sometimes. You
It-
could definitely get thrown off.
I feel like being the detective got harder and harder as the years went on.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But our strategies did
Yeah.
evolve too.
That's true.
Yeah, the meta evolved to such an extreme degree that like the games are balanced.
Yeah, true.
Crazy.
They were pretty balanced.
It worked out.
With Actor 2, I know there was at least one instance, I don't think it was me, where a necromancer tried to revive an actor, and it was like just a waste of the
Oh,
ability.
the
yeah,
necromancer
you wasted
reviving
it.
the
You wasted
Would have
it.
been. I don't remember. No, the actor did get up. If I'm not.
I
If I,
think
if
so,
I remember.
yeah.
But it would have been funny if the actor just didn't get up.
That'd be funny.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, you're still alive, it doesn't matter, you don't
Yeah.
have to get up.
No, you don't have to. You can stay there.
What do you
It's
mean?
just-
I
it's-
resurrected.
It's a waste of two abilities because it's a waste of the actor's ability.
Yeah,
And it's a
and
waste of the
necromancer.
necromancer, yeah. A lot of shenanigans. We have two more groups of roles to go over for classic murder.
I was just trying to remember if the frail was in here or not.
Oh no.
No, it's not.
Frail is
Frail's
not in here.
very
That
late
came way
edition.
later.
Frail is
way
much later,
but I
yeah.
just thought that maybe it would be funny.
Yeah.
Because the actor's kind of like the frail, just drop dead
A
whenever you want.
proto-frail.
Yeah.
Let's talk about two roles that are very similar in how they function. The tactician and the thief. So basically, these were two dual-wielding roles.
Yeah.
They could both dual wield. The thief was neutral, but the tactician was innocent. And like convincing people to give your gun away was like the theme of this entire wave of roles. And like as we progress, like these roles are like not nearly as like played. Like we didn't play with these roles nearly as much, so we don't have as many iconic experiences. But I honestly can't recall a time where the tactician was able to successfully get two guns. Like, can anyone recall a time?
No, I feel
Not
like
offhand.
I
Yeah.
remember getting tactician being like, well, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the vigilante just wouldn't be in play.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It proved to be very tough.
Especially as a vigilante, like, why would you give someone your gun? Without
Yeah.
remorse, it's like you're so powerful, like you don't want to give it away.
Plus, it's like, why does the tactician even want two guns? What am I gonna do with two guns?
It would prove them as tactician is
Yeah,
basically the
I
strategy.
I'd still rather have two people each with a gun
Yeah,
than
yeah.
one person
Probably.
with two guns.
Precisely. So that role didn't end up getting utilized very well. However,
it was fun to have in there, though.
Oh yeah, definitely good for variety's sake. And their ability has changed in modern Massacards. They're very different now. But the thief is still all about stealing stuff from people. So that's pretty cool. Jacob, do you want to talk about your baby?
Oh yes, the interrogator, my personal favorite role like
Mhm.
ever. Yeah, I came up with this role as like a fun idea to like incorporate like the whole, because I like the idea of the royalty being like a truth above all truths,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, yeah, like you just know what the role is and that's just the end of it. But the idea with the interrogator is that they have the ability to essentially force someone to be truthful by like unethically interrogating them, like pointing a gun at them and saying, "Tell me what you are, I'm going to shoot you." But the reality of it was that you're not actually going to shoot them. It's kind of like a ploy where you get the detective or the vigilante to give you their weapon as the interrogator. You take a bullet out of the chamber, point it at someone, and say, "What are you?" and they have to answer on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you guessed right, there's nothing stopping the murderer from just taking out their knife and stabbing you.
Yeah, because you're forced to unload your weapon.
Yeah, so it made it so that you couldn't just, like, you know, back the murderer into a corner and just, you know, essentially
That's why getting
rat them out and shoot them on the spot.
That's why getting the vigilante gun was such a big boon.
Yeah, because you had two... Yeah, if you managed to convince the vigilante of all people to hand over their gun, you had the ability to essentially just insta-win on the murderer, if you had the right assumptions.
Well, and that is what I did one time. Allow me to tell you a story. Anna was a very foolish vigilante at one point. And
I don't remember this, guys.
And I said...
I don't remember anything.
I just said so genuinely, Anna, I'm the interrogator. I can interrogate, insert third person in the room. Can't even remember. It's all a blur, right? You just so willingly handed me the gun. And to your surprise, I left the room without killing anyone. And then I just started executing everyone. I was the traitor. It was that
That's
easy.
Great.
Listen, I was like, I've never seen the interrogator do anything. We didn't play with the interrogator that much because it was a late roll.
I
You
remember.
know,
Yeah.
I wanted to see it happen.
It did work a couple times.
I was
It
remember,
did.
Anna, you just didn't want to be the one with the gun for a while.
That's true.
Yeah, so you're just like, let's see
I-
what happens.
It's a lot of pressure.
I'm probably the easiest person to convince to give you my gun. Life tip.
It just goes to show that like claiming interrogator is so powerful. You know, like interrogator is
Just
so
knowing that it's
powerful.
in play is a strong thing.
Yeah, in both ways, it's
With
powerful.
all these roles, like the jester or the fool or whatever, like there's
It made it
you
balanced.
make it really skeptical to give someone your gun.
Yeah,
Exactly.
There's a
it
lot,
became-
and traitor too. Like there's a lot that could go wrong if you gave someone your gun.
And that was part of the reason why the interrogator was created, to give people a reason to give their gun away that would really benefit
That would really
them.
actually
Yeah.
help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it did.
And it
On
did.
multiple occasions, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It was. I think there was one time where it worked exactly as intended, and it just completely hamstringed the murderer.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, what are you? I'm the killer.
I'm having these vague memories of you getting me with that.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
I think it was
like
probably
I was a
you,
murderer
I
or
just-
something, and you were like, "Who are you?" And
Yeah, I just
well,
the trick
I'm
was
the
to just stand a good like 5 feet away and make you throw your knife.
Yeah, because then if you miss.
Yeah, so you'd stand a good 5 or 10 feet back, pull the bullet out of the gun, and point it at someone and say, "Hey, I asked you, are you the killer?" And you were like, "Yep." Like, all mad.
Yes,
Then I had to go find a bullet and reload and then shoot you. Yeah.
A callback here is this would have been a good role for me to have when I was executing Anna.
True.
Oh,
Yeah, I wish
Yeah,
this role
yes.
would have existed then.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a good way to to force a royalty play. Essentially, you're basically making someone do a royalty thing to like
Absolutely.
take them out of the running for whatever you're trying to discover or like prove that they are what you thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
So it has some multiple utilizations, but it's so hard to get someone to give you your gun in the first place.
Yes, indeed. Let's see. The imposter.
Cue Among Us sound effects.
Among Us.
Among Us.
Among Us?
Yeah, so I've said this before in the Discord, and I'll say it again. The imposter was created before Among Us even existed. It wasn't even made. Not that it wasn't even popular, it wasn't even made yet.
Oh wow.
So I ended up changing it to the impersonator, for the sake of Among
For
Us.
Avoiding
reasons.
the obvious memes. Yeah.
Yeah. But this mechanic has stayed true basically the entire time. The impersonator knows who the murderous people are. The murderous people know who the impersonator is.
Yep.
That,
okay, now I
but the
remember
impersonator is innocent. That's all. That's
so
all
it'd
there
be
is to it.
confusing because I don't know if we completely explained this, but just for people to follow along.
Yeah.
When you pass out the rolls, you all look down and you'd be like, okay, murderers, grab your knives or like find your buddy, and you'd be going through all the rolls, like looking up and setting up the game so we could play the round.
Mhm.
So then with the impersonator, 3 people would look up sometimes. You'd have the murderer, the traitor, and the impersonator.
Mhm.
And like Luke said, you wouldn't know
Yeah.
who to trust. You wouldn't know who's your buddy.
Especially
And,
with
yeah.
roles like the stalker, like there might not be a way to prove that you're not the impersonator.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like, Shoot.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
It added a layer of complexity to the murderous side of things, where they also had to start asking some questions.
Yeah, they had to start doing some detective work.
Yeah.
It made it a little bit more balanced in that
Yeah,
case.
but
Just
then
like
you
that.
don't have just two murderers.
Two murderers that were
in
working
tandem
together.
Yeah, there were the murder buddy combo is very powerful and will always be powerful. But
Especially
adding
with less people.
that, adding that little monkey
area.
wrench of the impersonator definitely changed the meta just enough to make the killer interesting, just beyond
slightly
just
more
kill
interesting.
everyone.
And a bit more difficult because I know that before this, like you mentioned, detective was getting a lot harder to play, in general.
Yeah, they needed a little handicap.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The sorcerer is next. I believe they were called the wizard originally.
Oh yeah.
Just straight up
These
the wizard.
later ones I don't really remember that well.
Well,
so
allow
this is a
me-
good refresher.
Allow me to
I
tell
remember
you.
this one vaguely.
Yeah, well, you would. It's
Yeah.
magic.
Gonna
I love
hunt
magic,
you,
folks.
Look out.
Sorcerer could basically undo an effect on someone in general terms. It could uninfect someone. It could bring an eaten corpse back to being not eaten. It could do something else too. There was one other thing it could do.
I don't think this one
Could it
got...
unpossess a body?
No,
I don't think so.
I think it had something to do with the werewolf. Maybe it could un-werewolf rampage the werewolf or something like that.
I don't feel like this got played very often.
Yeah, no, it didn't.
Successfully.
Yeah, but
No.
the effects though are not particularly game breaking. They just
Yeah.
they screwed with things and made things happen
It's
differently.
really
Yeah.
subtle changes the wizard guy did. So
Yeah, a later role that got added, but the sorcerer is a lot better in modern Massacards, a lot more useful.
a lot more interesting.
Definitely, it definitely has a place in the game, but in classic Murder, they didn't really as much. They didn't have as much of a role. A role?
It's almost like it's a hidden role game.
Yo, that's
buy
crazy.
Massacards, a hidden role game.
Buy it.
Buy it even though
Ad.
Request.
Even though
ad.
you literally
you
can't.
can't yet, but
Request it
request a
first.
copy.
The mercenary is next.
Yep.
Mercenary is just assassin, but you draw a name at the start of the game,
Oh, this was fun.
and
That's really
that
fun.
person is your target.
You have the same looking knife too, right? So you don't know if you're
Yeah,
an assassin or mercenary.
yeah, they use the same style of knife, so yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference at face value between an assassin and a mercenary.
Yeah, the royalty gets revealed and the mercenary just doesn't care.
Yeah, huh? Who cares?
I'm not
Who
here for
cares?
you.
It also leads to really interesting scenarios where they are hunting down a random innocent who does not know what has happened.
Yeah.
You're just a bystander.
Why are you after me? What are you doing?
Like a table's between you guys, and you're like,
Yeah, another just expanding the meta sort of role. And I believe this next role was the final addition to the freshly formed Hungry alignment, the demon. And this demon was originally known as the vampire when I first added it. Vampires' mechanics have been effectively lost to time. Literally don't even know what they do.
Wait, what?
really?
Yeah.
I can't say I remember.
Yeah, because we played with them maybe twice, and I didn't write how they played on any of the cards. What I do know is that they had a chip, right? They had one chip that they would place on someone, and I know that they had something similar to a rage mode, similar like the Evolved and the Shapeshifter.
Was it just that they were able to use less chips? Was that the gimmick, or
They weren't. No, they did function differently to the Evolved. There was something with that chip. I don't know if maybe it didn't destroy the body or something along those lines.
I thought you could give it to a living person too, and it would debuff them.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, you could walk up to someone, hand them
Yeah,
the
you
chip, and then you'd feed on them, and then
did
they'd
something.
be.
Your guess is as good as
Yeah.
mine.
I'm gonna be honest.
It did something. It was
Yeah.
kind
I
of.
remember the chip. I think.
Yeah, the
I
chip.
remember
We
it was like a
utilized.
bat, right?
Yeah, we utilized the bat chip.
Allow me to I have the newly made version of Murder cards in front of me, and I want to read what I did for the demon slash
In Massacards, you mean?
yeah, no. These are the Massacards themed murder cards.
Oh.
Yeah, so
I forgot we had those.
look at how like I mean, you guys can't look. I mean, you guys can look, but you guys can't look. Look at how like
Oh yes.
look at
Yeah, there's
it's so
another
vague,
blood
right?
yeah.
Because this is what the original card said. It said they had the vampire chip,
Yep.
or I called it the
Bat
bat
token.
chip, bat token, yeah. And then the ability is Bloodlust, which is the same as like the same name convention as the werewolf and the evolved. So it's like, what is going on
Like,
here?
what was the different? Yeah. We
Yeah.
just didn't play with it.
That's so
enough,
funny
I
because
guess.
I also remember the chip being on the table, where it's
Yeah.
like one
Yeah.
chip. And it's like, why do I remember that, but I don't remember.
what
I have
it
no
was.
idea what you would have done with
Yeah.
it.
And I know
I feel like you placed it on a dead body, but I could be wrong.
when we most recently played Murder, I just made some things. I just made it up.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. The original mechanic is lost, unfortunately.
Lost media.
Lost media.
Lost media.
Come up with
But,
ideas. Come up with ideas.
Yeah, there
for
you go. How
what it
do you
should be,
do it?
maybe.
Yeah.
If you
I
feel
mean,
like it.
obviously, the demon has a very different set of tools now in modern Massacards, and they're distinct enough, and the abilities are written down so I can remember
So
them.
there we go.
You'll
Yeah.
never forget another roll. That's the
Documentation.
secret one. The secret lore that will never be recovered.
Well,
Secret
except
forbidden.
For character 22.
Character 22
Yeah.
is only a secret for them.
True. Yeah.
we love character 22.
Yeah, 22 is great.
Absolutely.
We know
The
22.
best.
The final group of roles here that I've already talked about some of them, because these are roles that were randomats originally that got made into roles in the end. So I already talked about the Corrupt, and I already talked about the Alchemist, so I won't even bother bringing them up again. But the Usurper is here, and the Usurper was originally a randomat called the Swapper Randomat. It basically changed the Jester into a Usurper, and the Usurper functions exactly like they do in Massacards, where you kill and you swap. It was like the older version of Jester, but it was better for reasons. it had the rules on the randomat. Yeah, I mean, that's basically all there is to say there. We really have next to no murder experience with the Usurper / Swapper, just because they were a randomat.
It was extremely rare for that one to occur.
Yeah. Another one that got added is the Slaughterer.
As we call it.
The Slaughterer. And their whole deal was last person standing. They wanted to be that person.
And they could pick up weapons and do whatever they needed.
Yeah. They could pick up weapons. They could do whatever. And that was another randomat role that got transformed. I can't even remember the original name. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's somewhere in there.
Yeah, it was something else.
It might have been just I think we had an every man for himself kind of.
Yeah,
free for all,
kind of,
something like that.
yeah, kind of game mode that got transformed into that. I can't remember the name of it though. Not that it matters because it didn't have any character before. And the final one that I'll talk about is the Soulbender, which is the final one that is part of the core murder cast, I'll say. Yeah, they just basically had a thing where it was like a ghost on steroids because they could just do whatever they wanted. A randomat where it's yes, someone is the Soulbender and they can go around and change anyone into anything at any time.
I want an undead in this game for some reason.
Yeah. It was ultimate chaos type role.
So it was pretty much my original concept for the ghost.
Yeah, except
The single roll.
Yeah. And the
Except
reason it
anything
became a
there.
randomat is just because it's so chaotic and unbalanced.
Which reminds me of quick side note of another randomat we did where everyone was a ghost.
Oh,
Do you remember
yeah.
that?
I remember
So
that.
anytime you killed anybody,
Haunted House. It was called
Yeah.
Haunted House, yeah.
yeah,
I remember
that was
one.
chaotic too.
Yeah, that was another good one. That being said, that is every role that was either conceptualized or created during the classic murder era. I'm calling it the murder era because
Murder.
The mirror,
the
if
mirror.
you will.
The murder, the murder live action murder arc.
The live
Yeah.
action.
Era.
There are many other eras. I mean, obviously, Massacards, the name, hasn't even been created yet. It's not even real.
In the timeline,
In this
yeah.
timeline, yeah.
Yeah.
This is before it
Truly
even
the
started
worst
getting
time.
translated to board game mechanics.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we'll have to talk about in the next episode.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The proto Massacards up next.
Yeah, what I like to call Massacards V1 is a topic that we will have to cover some other time, and also various other things that got mentioned during this, like Minecraft murder,
That's what I was thinking.
otherwise known as the Minecraft era. I would call that the Minecraft
Yeah.
The
era.
Mara.
The actual pandemic, if you will.
Yeah.
Pandemic mode.
Actual pandemic time. But yeah, I think I'll wrap it up here. Does anyone want to say anything else? Should we just get anything?
I've said what I've wanted to say.
Yeah. You told the stories you wanted to tell.
Covered.
Regaled them
Pretty
all with my
much.
tales.
Fool and character 22 tied for best character.
Oh, now it's a tie.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I
Oh.
forgot earlier.
I would
Okay.
like to say character 22, best character.
I think my thing will just be keep your eyes open on the channel. There's going to be some really fun new uploads, and also more from us.
Yes.
Not actual devs,
Get
but you know,
excited
people.
for us, not for anything Lucas
Yeah.
do.
Wow.
You'll see more of us and more projects related to the game.
Uh,
It's about to
We're
get
the-
way crazier.
The influencers.
Remember when we made a tier list of all our favorite roles?
We did.
Oh, I did forget that.
We did do that.
Dang, is that
Pretty much
somewhere-
magic rolls were like S and A for me, pretty much by default. So.
Yeah, for real.
Is that like buried in the chat somewhere?
It's
bet
it's
it's
buried
It's
in
probably
it.
in the Instagram chat.
Oh,
It's
it,
crazy.
no, it was. It was in
Was it?
Instagram.
It's a
yeah.
forbidden place.
We don't go there.
Access to that.
We don't. I don't think a lot of us are in there anymore.
You must never go there.
This is the Instagram shot.
But yeah, I will say this is the first episode,
Yeah.
and like these yahoos, these hooligans, will dip in and out of any future episodes. But like, I'm glad that we had so many of us here today because like I said at the beginning, you guys were a huge inspiration and a huge part of like
Stop it.
the
Stop
development of the development of early Massacards, which is murder, you know, and it only gets stupider from here.
We love getting
And
stalkers.
I'm very glad that we can share this knowledge with the
Yeah.
It was a
audience.
fun time in history in our
Yeah.
lives, I think.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and as you can tell, there is a lot of history here and a lot of specific
Yeah.
tales and
It-
stories.
Murder in general is something that I believe we could all talk about for a super incredibly long time. I mean, like,
Probably annoyingly long time.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Definitely.
Like if nobody else enjoys this podcast, I know that I'm just gonna enjoy like this episode to just like
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
relish it.
yeah,
I don't
we.
know.
It was really fun. It was
I'll
like
have
nostalgic.
7 views.
Yeah,
It was
go.
nostalgic going through the history and like,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, I like remembered a bunch of new stuff that I hadn't
Mhm.
thought about for a while. And
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
stories and
We
things. So.
weren't cool in high school.
We were cool in our own way.
We were cool to each other,
Yeah.
and that's
Yes.
what
I
matters.
think this is also
That's
something that
7
we
views.
rarely mentioned to other people in Westlake. We were like, okay, you're someone who's cool and I can trust you.
Yeah.
with this weird,
Yeah.
this weird
You and this
lore.
knowledge.
It was rare that we would ever
Super
bring
fun.
anyone in to this.
That is
I
true.
feel like at least like 20 people played murder.
Like total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
because we
that's true.
got we like gathered big.
There's some
groups of
random.
people
Yeah,
times.
we had,
Well, yeah, we got brothers, we got exes, we got
all
we-
sorts of
Random
Exes.
people.
yeah, we do have random
Exes who were
people.
not exes
Random
at
people
the
who moved
time.
across the
Yeah.
country we don't see anymore. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, we were just... Sorry, I was just laughing at your comment too
Oh.
late.
Yeah, it's cool
Yeah.
to see how much this game has evolved and what it is now. And now that
Yeah.
there's so many people, hopefully, listening to, you know,
Well,
I'm
yeah.
curious to see how this started.
Hopefully, yeah, people will enjoy what we had to say here.
And if not, I'm happy to have the two of you listening.
We need something to say like hey, you made it this far. Comment this below.
Oh, you're so right. Actually, yeah.
How about hashtag murder for life?
Or it could be
You know what?
Comment that below if you've gotten this far.
You know, that sounds perfect. I'm good
Yep.
with
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
That'll be
I
great.
love
that. You can bring it home
murder.
if you want.
Yeah. No, this has been really fun to have all of you here, and I hope to have you guys here in and out for future podcast episodes that I have planned, where we can talk about more of those fun topics and how the game finally got to where it was currently. Yeah, thank you for listening. If you've like made it this far. We've been recording for 2.5 hours.
I'm sure at least
It's gonna be a one-part
one
marathon,
maniac
or
is
what?
gonna listen to all this.
Are you
Yeah.
gonna keep it as a whole chunk, or are you gonna like maybe part 1, part 2 it?
No, this is going to be unedited.
Unedited.
Just the
Oh,
entire
okay.
the entire thing is going.
So you
straight
get my
on.
cough earlier in there? Or
Yeah,
what?
no, we're leaving that in. You ruined the
Wait,
podcast.
can we end with ASMR?
I announced it.
No,
so you
no,
could-
no.
I announced it so you could cut it out, but that's fine.
You have 4 swear words to bleep, by the way. I counted.
Oh no, it's totally fine. Yeah, hey guys, we swear sometimes. Whoops.
Ooh,
I
Um,
was
dang.
good.
It's fine.
Or was I? I don't
As long as
remember.
it's not during the
You-
first 10 seconds.
Achieved
As
some,
long
like,
as
the
the first-
whiteboard achievements that
Right.
don't swear really on.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. No, this has been really fun. And yeah, I think the next thing I'll do is I'll upload the second episode of this, which is just me talking with people in the Twitch chat about fan-made roles that were created.
Sure.
That was recorded long before this was recorded. But I'll upload that after this, so that'll be
Nice,
episode
nice.
2. I got 2 episodes lined up already.
Cool.
And we'll
Good
go
to
from
know.
there. We'll see you guys, talk to you guys in the next part.
In the next installment.
Yeah, in the next time.
Do you have some type of a sign off that's like a little silly catchphrase?
Hashtag murder for life.
Hashtag murder for
Hashtag
life.
murder for
life. If you
Hashtag
got this
murder
far.
for life. Be sure to stab that like button.
Oh my god.
Ring that notification bell.
And we'll see you next time at Massacre's Mansion.
All right. Goodbye for real, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Goodbye. Goodbye.
Yeah.